And thanks so much for joining Fight Night Picks Kicks. Really looking forward to our card tonight, UFC 260. We got some great stuff over on the website, fightnightpicks.com. Make sure you check it out. We have great interviews from some of the best in the business from our own JHK MMA. We also have the full card betting guides as well. Look at the best bets that our own Joshua Hart has. He's liking a Zeitzar. He's liking Khama worthy. But if you also head into the store, you can pick up some of the new and updated merch. And we also have a great sale going on until the end of today. Use promo code FNP25. You're going to save 25% off your order at fightnightpicks.com. Look at this. I've got an Under Armour shirt in my cart. Head on over to the cart, and like I said, as always, until the end of today, use promo code FNP25. I also have a hat in there too. Apparently I have 3. Use that promo code, and you're going to save 25% off your order at fightnightpicks.com. And as we always say, let's get into it. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clellan Farrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host, Craig and Matt Allen.
All right, Matt, and with that, we're getting ready for our Fight Night Picks UFC 260 Fight Companion. I almost said countdown, but I meant Fight Companion. As always, one half of your hosting duo, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP, and with me, as always, as bright as I am on the screen, I'll take my glass off due to the glare. We have Matt at Matt Allen FNP, and I mean, so far, Matt, it's been a good night. It's been a really good night. I mean, we had a weird decision in the Bukowskis-Olszewczuk fight. I know we saw it differently, and we had different picks. It was a weird one, but either way.
It wasn't, though. Here's the thing. It was a close fight that could have gone either way.
All right, but either way, it was a good one. It was a good one. And our first fight of the night, it was a good one. We got it wrong, but it was fun.
All the fights have been really good up until this point. Marc-André Barriault looked really good. He just kind of outlasted a Zeitzar. What other performances did we have? Goodness, there was just so many. I can't really pinpoint.
There were so many really good.
Looked amazing with that Von Preux choke. Sorry.
And you also had Omar Morales, kind of redefining Omar Morales. He wrestled in that fight and looked amazing. So we had a striker in Menafield becoming a grappler and submitting his opponent, who, if you look at Alonzo Menafield's last number of fights, I mean, he got finished by Ovin St. Preux. So then in that finishing sequence where he got hit, well, he absorbed his submission abilities and got a Von Preux choke, and that's just what happens. You had Morales, who became a wrestler, and then in the fight with Abubakar Nurmagomedov and Jared Gooden, I mean, Abubakar became a striker, and it was just absolutely insane. So we've seen 3 fighters just add lots of different tools into their game. I threw the tweet out there as the Nurmagomedov fight started where I was like, hey, straight up, if Nurmagomedov's going to strike, like, I'm worried for him. Hey, he was all right.
He looked really good, and I don't know what Jared Gooden was thinking, first of all, because he went into that fight with, I think it's fair to say, just a bad game plan, because here's the thing. I think we both agreed Nurmagomedov shouldn't use all 50 minutes to strike, but it's not like he's an awful striker if he did decide to do that. And Gooden decided, well, my hand should just be down by my knees, and I probably shouldn't defend my head, because Nurmagomedov landed so many clean shots. It was kind of surprising to see him really take over in the striking, but a really nice performance, too, and it did show a wrinkle of his game. I think we both knew he was an okay striker, but now I am somewhat more comfortable with Nurmagomedov being on the feet with different guys at 170, and it does make me view him differently moving forward.
It was a really good game plan. It was really interesting for the man himself. And to really get into Sunburnt Tongue's question, and I don't have a name, listen, I'm rocking the Red Bull. It's 10:59 here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. And I'm going to try and keep it as high energy as I can, because usually when I'm high energy, that's when the best clips come out. I know there's other shows out there, they boozins. I boozed on the McGregor card.
You did.
And then right at the end, I boozed a little bit too hard. But overall, it was a lot of fun there. I'm going hot and heavy tonight. I've been drinking water. Like, I'm feeling hydrated. I've had my vitamins. So overall, it should be a great one. So if this is the first time that you're tuning in for our fight companion, what we're going to do, we're going to flip it in between this view and this view. As always, presented by Manscaped. And we're going to kind of go in and out. So when it's between a round, you're going to see this up with the stats. We're going to regroup with the round. We're going to give you our overall card and our scores. Now, for over here, Matt, the big point is, I'm going to do this in the studio, so it's going to be a lot cleaner. But I'm going to show you the timer. And when we say that the round's going to start, all you have to do, just try and sync up your best with us on YouTube, because there's going to be a bit of a lag. But you'll get a bit of an idea that way as to what we're doing. And I mean, Matt, as far as the main card's concerned, I pay for it every time. It's a good card. It's not the best card, but it's such a shame that we lost our co-main event in the fact that Volkanovski off with his originally scheduled fight with Ortega. It's just a shame.
With the co-main event being off, it takes it down from like an A+ tier pay-per-view to just like a B+. I'm still really excited for this main event, and I do think normally when it's the heavyweight title being fought for, it's going to boost it up just a little bit. And the fact that Stipe Miocic is the greatest heavyweight of all time does make it slightly more exciting. And I've never woken up on a morning where Francis Ngannou fights and just been like, it's going to be another day. Like, when Francis fights, either A, you're going to see him get really, really tired, and that's always kind of neat, or he's going to knock somebody out in about 30 seconds, and that's also very fun to see. So I think it has been a really good card up until this point, and I think what we're going to get from this point on is going to be just as good, if not better.
If we go into the chat, Matt, and listen, we try to do our best in this. It's a little bit slower, but make it as fast as you want, please, by all means, and make sure you hit up the super chat as well, as we always say. But if we head in over there, Kenny's hanging out saying you need Khama Worthy up next to win your parlay. Question mark kicks parlay, still live. Had the over 1.5 in our card opener between Azaitzar and Barrio. And then I've got Miranda Maverick to round it out. I really like Maverick in that fight, so I'm feeling pretty good about it.
I do too, no. It'd be an interesting fight, because I do think there's a path to victory for Jillian Robertson, but it's so based on her ability to get the takedown. If she's forced to just become a striker against Miranda Maverick, we all know how that story's going to end. She's probably going to get knocked out. So hopefully Maverick can just keep this fight on the feet and just kind of overwhelm her.
To get into Craig P. Higgins' comment, I mean, Hal and Joanne, just a vital part of everybody's childhood with the body breaks. Yeah, those are great.
Body break.
Phoenix Graves gets it too. If you're not Canadian, go check those out. They're great.
They're pretty awesome.
They stand the test of time too. And they haven't aged a day since the 90s. What else? Glenn Bacardi's hanging out. Risky Thoughts. We got Aris Martinez. You lost $50 in the first fight. It is what it is. Laura Stat in the third. Yo, what's going on? They're showing us a bit of an idea of our co-main event. You have Luque taking on Woodley. That's one of those ones, and it's such a cop-out answer, but it could go one of two ways. Luque's just going to pressure Woodley, and he's going to land at will. Woodley's going to land a counter shot and shut the lights out.
We've been saying that for too long, I think.
Or Woodley wrestles.
I think Woodley is going to have to wrestle at some point, but that's the problem. Luque has really good knees coming up the middle, and he is really good at jiu-jitsu, too. I don't think people give Luque the credit off his back that he deserves, because he is really good on the mat, and I understand Leon Edwards was able to take him down, have some success on the mat, so maybe Tyron Woodley will be able to follow that game plan, but my problem is, we always hear, we heard going into the Burns fight, my left hand's really on another level. I've been in Thailand. My left hand's what you got to watch out for now. It's on the same level as my right hand. We didn't throw it, and we don't know how good Tyron Woodley's wrestling is until he tries to wrestle. And all we've seen from his last few fights is him backing up. So I'm at the point now where I'm just kind of over Tyron Woodley's going to show us this new wrinkle of his game. I think the Tyron Woodley we have seen is the Tyron Woodley that we will see, but it is the thing. He was the champ, and you know how good he has been in the past, so it is hard to sort of let that go, if you will, but I think we're past the Woodley going to land the big shot. I really do. It sucks to say because I was a big fan of the guy, and he is a little bit more advanced in his career, but I don't think we're seeing the old Tyron Woodley anymore.
Humble Sloth won the popcorn. I mean, the boys are always ready with the tins. There's pop and popcorn fights here for sure. And I mean, a really good point being brought up there earlier by MMA Matt. I really thought Menefield ran straight into a guillotine. We talked about it in the original prediction and question mark kicks, the fact that Fabio Charant really good at the defensive submissions, and as soon as Menefield ran in, I thought, oh boy, that's bad. But the way that he picked him up, threw him on his side. I mean, he really kind of got himself out of it quite easily into side control and then all the way into the Von Preux. And I'm never going to call it Von Flu ever again.
No, Von Preux is the official name of it, I hope from now on. But it was nice because when Benefield first got into the position, I thought he didn't know what to do. He wasn't really going for it. He didn't have his weight adjusted the right way. And from the position, it looked like, okay, they're just kind of in a stalling position. But once he did kind of readjust his weight, you could tell that he was putting all that weight on his neck. It was just over from that point. So really nice performance by Benefield.
Victor Newman, we really appreciate you. That means a lot. And listen, last weekend went pretty good. I had a 7-3, and so far it's 3-2. But you got 5 fights left. It's gonna go well. Matt's got 4-1. So it's a good night so far, and it's all thanks to everybody out there tuning in as well. I don't have a name. Yeah, I think Abu Zaitsar. Yeah, he definitely needed those potatoes.
He needed a treadmill is what I think he needed. That was just wild because he did look so good at the beginning of the fight, and it seemed like he could keep that output because at the end of the first round, he didn't look that tired, and then the start of the second round looked exhausted. It was like that 1 minute in between really took it out of him. It was kind of odd. And even the first minute of the second round, he looked okay, and then you could tell the pressure barrier just kept on getting to him. And here's the thing. You ever want someone to be wrong, but they end up being right? When Joe Rogan was like, oh, Barrio known for his power bar, power bar, and then it ended up he was right in the end. I get it, Marc-Andre Barrio had better cardio than Abu Zaitsar, but it's not like he's a guy who I'd pick to go out there and out cardio like a Brad Tavares or some guy who's in the top 15 who's really good. So just the fact that Joe Rogan guessed his way to being right on that oddly frustrated me in the previous.
SAPT hanging out over in the chat. Phoenix Graves saying, let's go. And Jonathan Reynolds, yeah, he was off for about 3 years. It's so weird though. Like if you watch the UFC's promo packs, they were getting you ready for Abu Zaitsar. That was one of the ones that they threw in there. It was fighters you need to know or you might not know. Miranda Maverick, who was one of the biggest stories in the second half of the year, and then Vicente Luque, that's been around since the dawn of time.
He's been knocking fools out for a minute.
Yeah, it was really strange. Everything MMA is also hanging out. Victor Newman saying, I always watch you guys before I bet, no exceptions, even if I don't agree with your pick. Great info on both sides.
Thank you.
That's the point. You get it. Scarecrow's hanging out saying, cheers, boys, good work. And yeah, I'm just overall really looking forward to this one. I mean, it should be a great one. Daniel, we appreciate you over in the chat as well. And Akashdeep hanging every single week. Even if you can't tune in, you're helping the boys. Sean McMinn hitting up the super chat. Now we're getting busy. Now, Matt, again, we have a really good card. So let's flip it on over to our second view, as always presented by Manscaped. And I'll be looking down because I'm going to be popping in and out and through. But Matt, Jamie Mullarkey, Khama Worthy, a very interesting fight between a couple of guys that, listen, if Jamie Mullarkey has his way, there could be a little bit of wrestling, there's going to be a little bit of striking, and it's a cop-out to say Shane Young's game plan tonight, maybe a little bit Mullarkey-esque. For Khama Worthy, a lot of long, rangy, weird shots. He can throw his legs and knees up the middle. A very fun fighter to watch, very blood and guts as well, because he's kill or be killed. This should be a really interesting fight.
I'm excited for this fight. I really am. And here's the tough thing. It's hard to offer any sort of analysis on this fight because I do think Khama Worthy's going to win. And you say if this goes the way Jamie Mullarkey thinks it's going to go. The way most Jamie Mullarkey fights goes, he gets hit quite a bit, and that does concern me against a guy like Khama Worthy who does have really good hand speed. He's got big power, and he's a guy who is just good at landing shots. So for Mullarkey, I think we can both agree he needs the takedown at some point in this fight. I know we say that a lot. He does need the takedown, though, to set up his striking. Because if he just goes into this fight, tries to outstrike Khama Worthy, he's going to get knocked out and probably quick. So it will be a fun fight depending on how long it goes. But I do side with Khama Worthy quite heavily.
We talk about our next fight, Matt. We have Jillian Robertson taking on Miranda Maverick. And listen, a lot of people in question mark kicks were not overly enthralled by this fight. But it is an interesting one because for Jillian Robertson, very much dependent on an early takedown and her abilities on the mat. And her striking's just never quite been there. Now, we've seen her really train her boxing a lot. And I'm sure she did at American Top Team, but a little bit more where she's been with Dean Thomas. She's been at, Gamblers, BJJ. She's been in a couple of different gyms. To me, it was interesting because when she made the move, a lot of people said, well, that one-on-one time is really going to work well for her. And then her fights, it's just kind of been...
It has been weird, and it's true. So much of her game relies on her getting that takedown because on the mat, she's really good, and she can offer up a lot of different submissions. She has good sweeps, and her top position is great because she can threaten with so many different submissions. The issue is her bottom game's not great when she does get taken down herself. It's not like she's someone like a Tony Ferguson or a Charles Oliveira who will really be threatening off their back a lot. Of course, Brian Ortega comes to mind. She can kind of get held down. We saw that a lot in the Tyler Santos fight, and I didn't think it was going to happen whatsoever. Predict that fight very wrong. So this fight really is one of two stories. It's either Miranda Maverick's going to be able to keep it on the feet and just, I hate to say destroy, but let's be honest. The striking difference between these two is quite significant.
From what we've seen, yeah.
Exactly. And for Robertson, if she can get the fight to the mat, it's not like Miranda Maverick's a fish out of water on the ground. She has fought a decent level of competition. I know we had a bit of a pushback on that, but here's the thing. When you look at a lot of people's records, it's people who, they beat people who never got to the UFC. A lot of people who Maverick has beat have fought in the UFC or who have fought for major titles outside of it. So I like Maverick quite a bit.
Mark saying, how was the Barrio fight? Man, it was great. I know we got it wrong. Barrio won, but overall it was an awesome one. And Dimitar hanging out from Bulgaria. We appreciate you, Matt. Let's move on from this one into Sean O'Malley and Thomas Almeida. And Matt, I made the late switch up. You had the theatrics. You got upset. Meltas over in the chat, just so upset. I mean, what a dingus. But realistically, Sean O'Malley, Thomas Almeida, one of two different ways. I mean, for Sean O'Malley, hopefully, again, the injury troubles, whether momentary or long-term, have kind of evaded him in this one. And we get a great stand-up war. We've already had some great fight of the night contenders. I think this should be a great fight.
It should be a really good fight. I see it going by way of Sean O'Malley. What we've seen from Thomas Almeida at 135 is a suspect chin. And even guys who don't have big power at that weight class have been able to put him down. And it's not like Almeida can really overwhelm with his gas tank. He can somewhat with his volume if he is really aggressive. But the issue with Almeida is when he's at his most aggressive, he's at his most hittable too. And for a guy can't take a shot all that well, I do worry against someone like O'Malley who is so accurate on his feet.
So that's another big one, and we'll just get it ready. I mean, Melzas, yeah, you're really loving the show. You get the idea of a fight companion, bud. With Thomas Almeida, yeah, he can make it interesting for sure, but in a fight with Tyron Woodley and Vicente Luque in our co-main event, the impromptu co-main event, the one that we weren't already expecting, the one that we weren't already excited about, I want to know who Branch Above has over in the comments section. And Mark kind of making mention of the TKO fights. Those are a lot of fun to watch, not just Marc-Andre Berrios fights, but TKO always has really good shows, and I, honest to goodness, like all jokes aside, and it is kind of a joke, but with John Ramdeen and Robin Black, I always got excited. I used to love Fight Network with those two guys up in Canada. I was always watching them. It's just a shame that we miss out on them. But in this fight, Matt, Tyron Woodley taking on a really tough out in Vicente Luque. It's a great one.
I've been a fan of Vicente Luque for a long time, and some people said he was a journeyman. Some people said his record was salty, but I said this guy's really, really good at striking, and he always puts on fun fights. And I gotta be honest, I never imagined Vicente Luque would really reach this point in his UFC career. I just thought he'd always be, he's that fun guy who anyone outside the rankings, he's gonna be able to put it on them, but when he faced the upper echelon, he might have trouble. Even in the Wonderboy fight, I went back and rewatched it. Yeah, he loses that second and third round quite convincingly, but in the first round, he lands bombs on Wonderboy, and I'm kind of surprised Wonderboy doesn't go down because of them, because he is able to land quite a bit. And with Woodley, he does have a really good chin. It's not like he goes down easy, but we have seen him. He's more hittable now. He doesn't have the cardio. He doesn't have the output. It concerns me for Woodley, although it would be nice if he could have this big, revamp of his career, if you will.
All right, Matt, we move into our main event. Before we get our pay-per-view curtain jerker started, we have Stipe Miocic taking on Francis Ngannou. And Matt, this is the biggest pop and popcorn type of fight there is out there. I'm going to enjoy this one with all the fans out there. You take yourself seriously, but in a fight like this, it could go 6 ways to Sunday. It could go one way for Francis Ngannou if it goes well. But for Stipe Miocic, there's so many different methods of victory. For Francis, though, it's that one shot, and there's nobody else in MMA, let alone combat sports, that have that one huge X factor that Francis Ngannou has. That's what makes this so interesting.
Yeah, he just has the great eraser, to quote Teddy Atlas. Francis Ngannou could make 24 minutes worth of mistakes in this fight, and as long as he is still standing in the last minute, he can just wipe away whatever lead Stipe Miocic had going into that last round. That's the power that you're dealing with someone like Francis, but we all know Stipe, at least recently, has shown that he is more than just a boxer and just a power puncher. He can wrestle. He's got great fight IQ. He can make adjustments during the fight. I think this fight's going to be amazing. It just really is hard to pick against Ngannou at this stage of his career. I think Stipe is a little bit older. He might have slowed down a little bit, but this fight can go any single way, and I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if Stipe even went out there and knocked out Francis. That's how close it is.
Listen, I definitely enjoy the matchup, and I really do like this one up here. I mean, if we're talking about our first fight on the card, you've got the man himself, Jamie Mullarkey, taking on Khama. We're getting a bit of the pre-fight stuff over on the UFC's broadcast. And for Mark, I mean, how about the UCC days? Could not tell you. Yeah, exactly. I could not tell you anything about them. But with Daniel Castle saying, you missed the days of watching regional scene fights on the score. I remember being a kid, like a teenager, but I wasn't, I was just a UFC fan, I guess I should say. young teenager that was into it for, the Shoguns and the Vanderlei Silvas and the Lyoto Machidas of the world. And you'd flip on the score and it'd be like, what is this? Like, there was Score Fighting Series. You'd see Bodog up here in Canada. Like, there was a lot of regional MMA, if you want to consider it that you could go out and watch. And I know a lot of people joke about it. Remember when Chael Sonnen fought Alexei Oleinik? Well, if you were lucky enough, you could catch cards like that up here. So it was pretty cool stuff back then.
Yeah, it really was. And it is unfortunate that Fight Network is no longer. Hopefully, I don't really know. It just sucks. It was a cool channel to have up here, but now we got Fight Pass, if you will.
You still have Fight Network. You could.
You could, I guess, but it's not really that readily available.
So for our next one, Matt, we've Jamie Mullarkey coming in here on a 2-fight losing streak since he's entered the UFC. And I mean, you look at the wins that he had, he's only been in here for a little over a year right now, a year and 5 months. He lost to Brad Riddell. You saw it in the highlight pack. He cracked him a couple times. It was a great fight. And then he fought Fares Ziam in a fight that was close. It really was. But Ziam's kickboxing ultimately won out for Khama Worthy since he's come into the UFC. He knocked out a buddy in Devontae Smith. I mean, what an insane win that one was. He submits Luis Pena in a fight that was back and forth. And then he gets knocked out by Otman Zaitsar, a fight that wasn't close whatsoever. So in this one, it'll be interesting to see how both guys retool and come at this fight.
It really will be. And again, this is such a clash of styles. And this fight does kind of remind me of the Miranda Maverick, Julian Robertson one that we're going to get later. Because with Mullarkey, I would say his striking is much more effective than Robertson's striking is, but it still is somewhat rudimentary, whereas Worthy will throw a lot of different looks at you. He's got great elbows. He is a very long-range striker, so I think this will be a very fun fight as Khama Worthy's getting ready to enter the cage.
And like I said, for everybody out there that's tuning in, we really appreciate you. I mean, the likes, the subs, the super chats, all that, and everybody that's hitting up the chat right now. But the point I'm trying to make is, when this fight starts, there's going to be a lag between you and I and YouTube and your fights, so just hit the pause button. You're not going to miss anything over on the pay-per-view, so we can sync up and we'll be right on. And I tap that puppy as soon as the fight starts. And I'll never say I'll tap that puppy again, but
Thank you.
I will for the start of the fight so we can get ready for it. But overall, if there's a groin shot, if there's a stoppage in play, then I'm just going to have to tell you what time it is in that fight.
Chris Toyoni sighting, which is always very fun. That means one of these men is probably going to lose years off of their life. Now, that's not fun for either one of them, but Chris Toyoni, he's always involved in an interesting fight. We really have had some interesting ref choices this evening.
I mean, listen, first fight of the night, we had the weirdest, sequence I think I've seen in a while, where that fight could have been done at any time, and Jaron Villel just wanted to see more and more and more of it. So, yeah, martial arts fan asking what the clutch play tonight. The first leg of the question mark kicks parlay hit with the Zaitsar and the man himself, Marc-Andre Betio, going over 1.5. And then on our main card, I have Maverick to get the win over Robertson. That's the second leg.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with those picks as Mullarkey's about to get ready to go into the cage. Interesting fight afterwards, too, because for Mullarkey, if he loses, you'd have to imagine this is probably the end of the road for him. But for Worthy, it's really hard to say how good he is, because with the Zaitsar gets cut by the UFC. Now, I think he's back in. I don't really know to be 100%
Never
sure.
got cut in the first place.
Just, Ahmed Zaitsar, up to some stuff. That's all we can say. But Jamie Mullarkey, that's the thing. He started his UFC career 0-2. He has fought a decent level of competition, but the thing is, it's hard to get off to an 0-3 start and then be back for a fourth. And for Khama Worthy, so you beat Luis Pena, which is good. Devontae Smith you beat, but that was kind of a weird fight. Both guys were acting just sort of odd in that whole thing. So for Worthy, I don't really know where his ceiling is in this division. I think he can have a fun fight with a guy who is slightly outside the top 15. I think if you throw him in there with a Nasrat Haqparast, perhaps, that would result in a really fun fight. But I do find it hard to see his skill set really put him over the edge to become one of those, Paul Felders. I know you love that Ally Quint is still in the top 15, any fighter like that. So for Worthy, I think he can always have a really fun fight depending on what matchup you give him in the future. But for me, it is hard to really see him in that top 15 in the lightweight.
And I mean, Wyatt Kenny brings up a really good point. You're nervous for this fight because Mullarkey knows he's fighting for his career. We've had a lot of fighters with their backs up against the wall, really put on awesome performances lately. I mean, the biggest one that sticks out to me, Alessio Di Chirico, when he took on Joaquin Buckley. Yeah. I mean, that was a 3-fight losing streak. Everybody, ourselves included, had counted out Di Chirico. You knew he could wrestle. You knew he could do a few things, but wow, didn't he look good in that fight. So we've got a great one here. We're getting the particulars on Jamie Mullarkey and Khama Worthy, the Death Star. And yeah, I mean, just stylistically, very interesting matchup. You got a guy who's normally blood and guts, and Jamie Mullarkey, who's kind of gotten rid of the old fade of a mullet here lately. It's a tricky one there. Phoenix Graves has Robertson by sub. Martial Arts Fans has Robertson by sub. And Sean V has Robertson by sub. Holy smokes. Diego Casas saying, let's get into it. And Jake, the MMA fan, 1997. What's up, guys? From England. Big fan of the channel. We appreciate you, and you retracted the message, so apparently you don't actually believe in it. Branch Above is going with Maverick. Matt, we're getting set for our main card.
My only pushback to that, he's on a losing streak. He's fighting for his career. Anthony Hamilton lost plenty of fights and never fought harder because of the amount of fights that he lost previously.
It's because his nickname was a freight train.
Still, I just mean, like, if a guy's lost 2 in a row, it's probably not because, oh, wow, he wasn't trying hard enough. It's probably because he wasn't good enough to win those fights. That's my only pushback to that. But I do agree. It's not like Mullarkey has a second option after this fight. And stylistically, if he is able to get the takedown, I think he can tire down Worthy.
Let us know who you're going with for the picks. Just a reminder, we both have Khama Worthy to get the win here, but we'll see what happens. Very much a pop and popcorn fight as we get set for the first fight on our main card. Woo. And I'll start the timer as soon as this round starts. Here we go, Chris Tognoni. And we get the start of our first round between Worthy and Mullarkey. Mullarkey with quite the wide stance here early. Matt chewing on some popcorn, just incredibly unprofessional.
Both guys just feeling each other out. Not much going on yet, Craig. We're only 10 seconds into the fight. Now, Mullarkey is throwing that overhand right. He threw it one time. If he is able to catch him, maybe that's something to watch out for. But Mullarkey's looking good on his feet so far.
Mullarkey definitely not looking like a fish out of water. Really nice popping jab there for Worthy early. But both guys feeling it out. A leg kick that whiffs for Jamie Mullarkey. Yeah, Tristan, not a big Anthony Hamilton fan.
He had a good run. He was a co-main event once.
He had a great nickname.
He did.
Ooh! Jamie Mullarkey finishing Khama Worthy.
Wow.
And that is a big ol' L for your boys. I mean, Matt, what a big win for Jamie Mullarkey.
I think Khama Worthy, I don't know how he loses that fight. Now, I definitely did not think he would get knocked out in the first minute of it. Good job, Jamie Mullarkey. Wow, great performance.
That's how you put on a statement. And like it was said over in the comments section,
wow.
I mean, you're talking about a fighter that really had his back up against the wall. What an impressive win. And people aren't going to forget a finish like that.
That was clean. That was really nice against a high-level striker. So the fact that he was able to go there and knock him out in the first minute, that's really impressive as we see Khama Worthy pull out with his hands down. That was a really nice left hook by Jamie Mullarkey. That was nice stuff.
I mean, to me, you look at it for Worthy, that's 2 finished losses in a row. That's what, 7 losses in your career by knockout out of 8 total. Like that's a tough one to try and get back from.
I mean, for anyone, it's tough to get back from a knockout loss to a guy who was 0-2 in the UFC. But again, I don't think the shift can be, oh, how bad it is for Worthy. Like, this is great for Jamie Mullarkey. He just basically fought to extend his UFC career. So good on him. That was really, really nice.
Huge win there early for Jamie Mullarkey. It only took him 6 total strikes to do it. I mean, what an amazing win for him for sure. Scarecrow saying quick stop. I don't think so. I mean, he had him dead to rights when that strike landed, and it was all she wrote once he hit the mat.
Well, it's not like he was out cold. Like, if you wanted to go one more punch, you could. But yeah, I do think he was on his way out.
Yeah, definitely a decent stoppage by a guy who doesn't really have the most decent of stoppages on his total resume. And Rahman, yeah, I mean, again, when a guy's got 8 losses, 7 of them by knockout, 2 in a row, you don't have the best chin. Now, the trouble is, for a guy like Worthy, again, the suspect chin was at 45. That's 2 in a row at 55. It's just a tough look. But for Jamie Mullarkey, you can't take anything away from him. Very good display of striking in that one.
Yeah, no, that was great for a guy who, again, he's primarily known for his wrestling and his grappling. That was just a really nice showcase for him. And we knew he had okay power in his hands. He was able to hurt Brad Riddell, but I felt like that strike that he landed in that fight was more because Riddell, A, he wasn't looking when it landed, but also it was just sort of one of those tricky shots that he can land. Whereas that was just a nice left hook over the top. So great job for Mullarkey and Khama Worthy. Hands up next time, bud. That right hand was down by your waist.
Matt, I mean, now our next fight, we might as well move on to it. I'm sure we'll get an interview out of the man himself, Jamie Mullarkey. But, Matt, if we're looking at the 5-on in for Jillian Robertson, it's definitely not the best that we've ever seen. I mean, she's coming in here 3-2 in the 5-on in. And if we're talking about a year and 7 months ago, she fought Sarah Frota, somebody who just did not ever like to make it on the scales.
Not at all.
That was a huge statement win for Robertson, fighting a much bigger fighter in that one. Huge win there. She comes out, gets knocked out by Macy Barber, and she got backed up right up against the cage. Total barrage of strikes. And the most awkward part of that was Dean Thomas going, he was like an Easter Island head. He just had nothing to say. Very stern look on his face.
They cut to the camera. Yeah, they cut to the corner camera. It's just the worst time as she's getting finished. Not the best time that you want to see. Pouring one out for Worthy's career. He is 34. Not great that you're not known for being durable at the age of 34 in the top, well, at 155. Not things you want to be known for, but I do still think they're going to give Worthy probably another shot. He'll probably get a guy coming off the Contender Series or something. I doubt he'll get anyone of substance, but just a really good performance by Mullarkey. And you had said with the Macy Barber fight how she was able to back up Jillian Robertson and really unload on her. That's exactly how I see this fight going, if I can be honest. I do think Maverick is the much harder striker. She has better volume, and she has a much better variety of strikes in the feet. It's not like she's a big kicker, but she will mix in the elbows sometimes, whereas Robertson really only throws punches. That's it. She will throw like a bit of a labored leg kick. I hate to describe it out. It is kind of Francis Ngannou-esque, where her whole body's kind of stiff when she throws it. She's not the best technique in the world, so I do think it's really simple. If Maverick can keep this on the feet, I said that about the last fight, but still, so yeah, I like I like Miranda quite a bit in that fight.
Friend of the show, John Quinn, saying, when I donate, that guarantees a payout on your parlay, right? Well, if you hit the question mark kicks parlay, we're going to find out next whether Craig Allen is a donkey or whether I hit it and hit a home run.
I mean, you're still a donkey.
I still get the Fight Night Picks baseball shirt on. But I mean, again, when we're talking about Robertson, she loses that fight to Barber, beats Courtney Casey, beats Poliana Botelho, loses the title Santos. And the thing for Jillian Robertson, she's been in the UFC for quite some time. I know she's still a prospect. She only has 14 pro fights, but she has been in the UFC and has faced a high-level competition since she debuted. I mean, her debut fight in 2016, Hannah Goldie, that we're supposed to see last weekend. She fought Cynthia Calvillo on the regional scene. Hannah Cyphers on the regional scene. Lost to Barb Honchak, The Ultimate Fighter Season 26. Beats Emily Whitmire, Molly McCann, Veronica Macedo, Sarah Frota. None of these women that she's beat have ever been like the highest level of competition.
Molly McCann's pretty good.
Yeah, McCann's probably the statement.
Okay, but let's not completely diminish Jillian Robertson's career just to boost Miranda Maverick. Because I agree with you. I think Miranda's going to win, but I don't think it's because Jillian Robertson hasn't fought good fighters in the past. I think even losing to people like Barb Honchak, even losing to Cynthia Calvillo, you're going to learn something because of it. And I do think that all that has kind of lend itself to the progression of Jillian Robertson. I just think at the end of the day, Miranda Maverick's the much better striker out of these two, and she has enough takedown defense to keep this fight on the feet.
And we'll see what happens. And I mean, for Maverick, you talked about it. I mean, somebody that's faced fighters that we've seen in the UFC in the past. I mean, again, the losses, Brogan Walker-Sanchez, who's faced a very high-level competition. Deanna Bennett, they rematch. She beat Bennett. Again, a lot of people were kind of critical on that one on question mark kicks. They withstood the adversity and did a good job of winning it. She has a first-round win over Victoria Leonardo that ended up in the UFC, taking on one really tough out, Manon Fiorot. And then really it's the wins, actually in Invicta Phoenix. Now I know, again, one-round fights, so on and so forth, but beat Leonardo, beat the UFC Shanna Young, beat Deanna Bennett, beat Pearl Gonzalez that was in the UFC, and then won her UFC debut. So we'll see how that one goes. John's saying it's because Maverick was born in the USA. John Chell, we're Canadians, buddy. And we're going against the Canadian. Yeah. So there is that. And a good question for Phoenix Graves. Doesn't Jillian have a UFC record for subs in her division? Well, let's go through the record and talk about those submission wins if we can. So for Robertson, again, the Canadian coming in here with the red hair. She has finished wins over, well, Pearl Gonzalez at Submission Underground. That's impressive. Courtney Casey, she submitted. She finished Sarah Frota by TKO. She submitted Veronica Macedo, submitted McCann, submitted Whitmire. So far that's what, 4 wins by submission in the UFC. And you have to consider it too. I mean, you look at that division, very much still in its infancy.
Shayna Dobson was also tied for the record in TKOs in the division.
No longer in the UFC.
Yeah, I don't put that much stock into it because it is still sort of an ever-evolving division. But this is a very key fight for both fighters. We have two fighters who I don't think Maverick's in the top 15. I believe Jillian Robertson is just barely in the top 15. So really important fight for both prospects. And if Maverick can win, we kind of talked about this before, where Maverick is one of, we'd like to talk about Joe Rogan's favorites. She's a John Anik favorite. And the end of the year show last year, John Anik said she might be the second best flyweight in the world. Now, he probably forgot Jessica Andrade is in that division, because let's be honest, Andrade kills her right now. But right now, I do think Maverick is the most exciting prospect in this division. And that's even with Macy Barber in this division, with Jillian Robertson, with, if you want to consider Alexa Grasso a prospect, she's been around for a while, but she is still quite young. There's still a lot of really fun young fighters right now at women's flyweight, and I'm excited to see the futures for both these.
It should be a good fight. Again, if Robertson wins, she's already 15th in the division. She gets an opportunity to move up. And again, you talk about it, ever-evolving division for sure, and we've seen prospects jumping in here recently. Again, the Manofiotos of the world and so on and so forth. So you never know where you could go with a win rate here.
Oh, 100%. Again, when it is a new division, we kind of saw this at featherweight, and Chael Sonnen made a video on it. He was like, if you want to fight Chris Cyborg, just raise your hand and say, I'll do it, because at one point, that's all the division really was. And with Valentina, it's not at that point yet. There are some contenders starting to rise in the division. Lauren Murphy, of course, had a great 2020, our female fighter of the year.
Big fight coming up against Joanne Calderwood.
Big fight coming up. Jessica Andrade, of course, the number one contender. That fight being matched against Valentina Shevchenko.
Araujo's got a big fight coming up against Chukagian, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. So the top of that division is starting to settle somewhat. So it will be interesting to see once these prospects are really starting to make their way up, where they kind of fall in the division. Because it seems like every prospect, they fight up until a certain point, then you're kind of stuck at number 7, and you have to go back, fix whatever problems you had, and then you can kind of make your next run up the division. So I think this is a very important fight for both fighters, and one that both will probably learn quite a bit from.
Jake, the MMA fan, we're just kidding. We like you. You're good in our books, 100%, as we get set for our next fight on the main card. And the first one was over so quick, and only a 10-fight card. Really interesting, the pacing so far. To me, it hasn't been too bad, but really, when it was the undercard, I had the opportunity to get up, stretch, have a drink of water, eat some macaroni. It was a pretty good one.
So much room for activities. I'm excited for the rest of this card. I really am. I think we've got a great co-main event. I think we've got a great main event. I think the prelims have been good. This should be a really good card top to bottom. Question I was going to have for you. Our fight of the night so far, what would you say it is? I think it was probably Modestas Bukauskas.
Badio and Zaitzer.
But that was just one. I think Bukauskas is better. It's fair. Like, it's not a bad vote. I just think Bukauskas Lord Michael was a better fight.
Let us know in the comments section what you're thinking as Matt continues to eat popcorn and give himself cotton mouth as we get ready for our next fight on the main card. But again, trying to really get into the nuts and bolts of this one, it is interesting. And there was a little bit of criticism thrown our way, and I'll be honest with it, over on Twitter. There was a guy just going hard in the paint about fighters who were young in their careers coming in. We had DePaula to beat Jinyu Fry rather. Got that one wrong, 100%. Fry was able to really implement the wrestling, and it worked to her advantage. Another one of the fights was... Oh, it was another prospect taking on a veteran.
You're not the president. You don't do address the nation.
But the whole purpose of it is, I mean, in a fight like this where you take the fighter who has less experience, it's always interesting to see how they'll make out against that, you know, tougher competition, I want to say, moving up through a division. And again, this is her first-ranked opponent after beating a Liana Jojua who, in her own right, didn't look good in her debut at bantamweight, came down to flyweight, had a very impressive win over Diana Belbizia. And that fight wasn't that close. Now, I will say, if you do go back and watch it, Jojo was able to land a couple of really nice combinations moving forward. It wasn't the Cindy Dandois-esque hands are out. She does have good boxing to go along with her very accredited judo background. But in a fight like this, so many different things to look at. You have the different look of Maverick popping out in southpaw. She can really mix things up. Throws nice kicks as well. And for Robertson... well, it'll be very interesting. If she gets Maverick in a bad spot, will she be able to go in for the submission?
Again, really, just to simplify this fight, can Jillian Robertson get it to the mat? Do you think she can?
She's going to have a hard time.
Then you're picking Miranda Maverick. If you were to say, yes, I think Jillian Robertson can take her down, then you have to pick Robertson because, again, the advantage Robertson has on the mat is quite significant. She can go for a ton of different submissions. She's really good at getting the back, but my problem is when she herself is on her back, she's not great at getting back up to her feet. She's kind of floats in these weird positions where she can kind of grab onto submissions and go for arm bars, but she's never dedicated enough to really grab it. So I'm a little concerned for Robertson, especially if she is kind of exposed to poor striker in this fight, because we're starting to see the game plans to how to beat Jillian Robertson. All you have to do is make her a striker. With some fighters, you can't beat them the same way every single time. For instance, with Justin Gaethje, like Poirier knocked him out with a punch, Alvarez knocked him out with a knee, and then Khabib triangle choked him off his back. There was different ways to beat him, where everyone seems to beat Jillian Robertson pretty much the same way. You defend the takedown, you force her to become a striker, and then you just kind of expose those holes on the feet. So I think Miranda Maverick will be able to get that done.
Really looking forward to seeing how you guys are seeing it. The fans out there in the comments section, are you riding with Robertson? Are you going to go with the American Miranda Maverick out there? I mean, again, we talked about it, the fact that Jillian Robertson uprooted. She was an ATT staple for so long. Now she's got Dean Thomas in the corner, who's not on desk duties tonight. And that was really interesting to see him on the desk there. What was it, last weekend? I mean, I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yeah, no, more Dean Thomas is never a bad thing. Like, yeah, throw him on the desk, throw him on commentary. I like Dean Thomas. Here's the thing, though. We always mention how, oh, she just left ATT. It's been a while now. Like, she hasn't been at ATT for almost a year, if not slightly more than a year. It's not like she did just leave. So we are starting to see this sort of solo Jillian Robertson, if you will, the more one-on-one with Dean Thomas. So I just don't know. Are we going to see a better version of her? Was leaving that gym the right choice in the end? That's really up to her, I guess. But it'll be interesting to see, because I don't think we've seen these massive improvements like I originally hoped we would when she did first leave ATT, because it has been a little while now.
The Fight Night Picks kicks. Parlay, it's riding on this fight, and yikes, I always worry about this division. But if we head into the comment section, Matt, Wyatt Kenny's going with Maverick, but not confident with it. Adrian Anderson's got Robertson. Branch Above's got Maverick. Everything MMA, Maverick for the win. Akash Deep, my parlay, yeah, it's that gosh darn Khama worthy and his chin. Scarecrow, I got Maverick, but it'd be fun to see Robertson get the sub. And Safo, yo, what's up, guys? How is it going? We got the 23-year-old taking on the 25-year-old. Both of these women with over 10 fights. We're into double digits. 5'3.5" is the height for Miranda Maverick. They're not going to give her that 5'4". And for the reach, they're not going to give her 66. They're going 65.5. So it should be a very good one. Gift of Nothing saying that Jillian looks pale. I'd hate to think what Gift of Nothing thinks about us.
That we're lifeless, some might even say. Interesting fight. Again, two really hot prospects, and it should be a fun fight between them. I do think Maverick has the higher ceiling, because I do think Jillian Robertson doesn't have Damian Maia Jiu-Jitsu. That's the real problem. And if I had a dime for every time I said that's the real problem with a fighter, I would be a rich man, because it's not like Jillian Robertson can just take a fighter down and it's like, oh, the fight's over. She's not like a Brian Ortega or a Charles Oliveira, where the second she gets the fight to the mat, you're like, this is a wrap. They're just that good. She does need to go position to position to really get something good going off. So I do worry about Robertson's sort of finishing ability moving forward. I understand she doesn't have a lot of finishes up until this point, but when you look at that level of competition, it's not all that high. And when she does start to fight the Caitlin Chikagins of the world, even the Antonina Shevchenkos of the world, if you will, they're going to make her a pure striker, and that does worry me.
Antonina looked great in her next fight. Branch Above, you know that's what I'm going to do when I get the timer ready. Make sure you're synced up with us before this fight. There's going to be a bit of lag over on the YouTubes, as there always is, as we're getting set for our second fight here. Love that fight between Brett Johns and Matos with Bellator. Bellator is making moves and starting grooves. And those cards look great coming up here shortly.
The grooves still involve Lyoto Machida, though, so
I love Lyoto Machida.
Yeah, oh, no. You will not find two bigger Lyoto Machida fans in the year 2021. But the fact that that's still what I'm getting excited for Bellator does cap it to a certain degree.
It's all good for me. Again, you have Maverick coming out of here in the southpaw stance. Robertson looking to push a little bit of a pace. You like to see that out of her, really.
It'll be interesting, because right now she is trying to be a bit of a boxer. So at some point, again, she's going to have to go for the takedown. The few strikes that Maverick has thrown, she's thrown that left straight quite a bit. She has landed it twice so far, and we're only 30 seconds into the fight. So, again, Robertson's going to need that takedown at some point, because you're seeing her kicks are slow.
Really nice leg kick there on the lead leg by Miranda Maverick, who's throwing a nice feint of the uppercut. And like you said, I mean, she's going jab into that straight. It's really working out quite well for her early. But Robertson, again, trying to change levels a little bit, trying to gain in. Nice left hand that lands for Maverick. Good one for Robertson there with the right.
The problem is there's nothing on the punches of Robertson. She's either moving backwards, and she doesn't have her feet planted when she's throwing. Whereas with Maverick, she's kind of planting, then letting her shots go, and then she'll get out of position. And Maverick really is just landing a lot more.
Maverick doing a good job. Both women trying to control the center of the octagon. But when it is Robertson moving, you do get big expressions out of Maverick, kind of moving back, resetting, starting to gain ground here in the center, going body head. Something you love to see so far. 3 minutes, 40 seconds into our first round between these women. Our second fight on the main card. Nice combination by Miranda Maverick early.
Yeah, Maverick just, when she's letting her hands go, she is landing. And again, you're seeing some of the deficiencies, if you will, in the striking of Jillian Robertson. I think she's going to need takedown at some point. And I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen her go for one already, because kind of I hate to say what Jillian Robertson's known for, her signature move, if you will, is sort of that panic takedown. When she does fatigue, she will just kind of shoot for takedowns and not set them up, and that does worry me a little bit.
Maverick's still going for the feint of the uppercut with the lead hand. A little bit of a superwoman punch there with the left. That left hand is finding a home early, as I think Matt really liked the superwoman punch.
Good job. Yeah, again, for Jillian, she's going to need takedown at some point. She's throwing strikes back, but you can tell there's just nothing behind them when she is throwing them. If Jillian Robertson ever gets a knockout on the feet, there will not be a more surprised person in the world than Matthew Allen of Fight Night Picks, but she is striking, and she is sort of landing when she's throwing, but again, you can tell that the strikes of Maverick are landing a lot harder than the strikes of Robertson are.
Robertson continues to push forward. A little bit of redness on the face of the Canadian sporting the red hair and the red kit as we approach halfway through our first round. And again, it is a good one. I mean, martial arts fans saying you're impressed by Jillian's stand-up. Honest to goodness, I am as well. You know, she hasn't really kind of been overmatched. She hasn't been totally outclassed so far. But a great combination there from Maverick. Just really stuff that can change the tide. A nice kick followed up by a punch. And that's something that we saw in the debut as well. Really starting to string together different combinations.
Yeah, just the thing about Robertson, like, yeah, she's not losing badly on the feet, but it's not like she's winning any of this fight. Like, she's always on the retreat. She's the one getting hit for the most part. When she's landing, it's just the one shot that she's eating 2, 3, even 4 in return. So that's the real problem for Robertson. You can't expect her to just have this game plan for the total fight.
Robertson really continuing to find a home for that right hand. You can see on the side of Maverick as she just shoots in. Be very interesting to see. Maverick now in half guard, looking to pass into mount.
If she's able to get full mount on Jillian Robertson, that'll be very impressive. And again, with Robertson, she's a jiu-jitsu black belt. She's a very good grappler, but we have seen her off her back. She does have some struggles. She can get back up to her feet, but she just has this weird position where she won't go for a submission. Look at that. She gets back up to her feet. That was good work by Jillian Robertson.
Very good job by Robertson to get back up to her feet. You almost saw where she was pressed up against the cage. Maybe she had an opportunity to take the back, but the smart play was to stand up. And now you have Maverick trying to push with about a minute remaining in our first round.
Yeah, just for Robertson, you're going to have to go for that offensive takedown at some point. I'm surprised she isn't going. At least try to push her opponent up against the cage. We talk about this a lot, actually, where there's a lot of fighters where you think, at first glance, you're like, oh, they're a wrestler. They're not. They're a pressure fighter disguised as a wrestler, where they're going to start shooting for takedowns once they get their opponent up against the cage. And that's really what Jillian Robertson will have to do at some point. She's not moving forward at all in this fight. Just a lot of her moving backwards.
Matt, I mean, you look at this one, Maverick continues to strike at will, and one of the combinations that she threw early, it's a great comparison. I'd like to think she went 1-2 high kick. It was the classic Holly Holm with a nice takedown by Maverick, just a power right in there. That was one of those old-time hockey hit type of ones right out by the boards, and down goes Jillian Robertson trying to hand fight here with about 13 seconds remaining in the round.
Down goes Robertson might be the new, down goes Tyson. Down goes Robertson! Not a word, not something I ever thought. This will be interesting. Thought Casey Kenny was mixing. Okay, well, that's funny. Jillian Robertson definitely lost that first round. Again, you're not going to win the fight if you just walk backwards and eat strikes. And for her, we didn't even really see a takedown attempt. If the first one was scored a takedown for Miranda Maverick, that's fine. It almost looked like Robertson pulled guard, kind of. She just sort of jumped to her back. So I'll credit Miranda Maverick with one takedown for it. Just, I don't know what Jillian Robertson can take from that first round and go, okay, this was good. What can we do more of in the second?
And I mean, Matt, really kind of busting the eardrums of all the fans outside. But if we really look at this one, Maverick slightly outstriking Robertson. But if we learned anything, and I joke, but about the Bukauskas fight against Olszewczuk, the pressure with the striking is really what scores with the judges.
Okay, this is the last thing, too. People look at significant strikes, and they're just like, he had more, he won. No, not all significant strikes are created equal. Damage does play a factor, and so does the guy who hits harder. Like, Rumble Johnson would have never won a fight if it was just based on volume. That makes no sense. The landing of the shots does matter, and the fact that Maverick had both really does matter.
All right, Matt, we're getting set for a second round. I jumped the gun and pressed too quick on the timer, but here we go. We're kicking off our second round. And yeah, like everybody's saying over in the comments section, I mean, for the first round, 10-9 Maverick, though, so far. Good body work there from Robertson early.
But again, the problem with Robertson is there's not a lot behind her shot. So unless she has Max Holloway levels of volume, it's going to be really hard for her to hurt anyone on the feet. And again, you would expect maybe she's just striking until Maverick gets fatigued enough for her to go for the takedown. But Robertson can't just keep on walking backwards, eating shots.
Where are these heavy-handed women's flyweights that you speak of?
Jessica Andrade, Valentina Shevchenko. Like, there's a couple.
The upper echelon. But we continue on. We're about 35 seconds into our first round. Again, both women right in the center of the cage. John Quinn saying, is it red night? You forgot to wear red. Well, listen, John Quinn, I don't know about you.
close.
I think you might have some merch there.
That
but,
Superman punch has been nice from Maverick so far. It really has been. As Robertson goes for the takedown, she has the back Miranda Maverick. Now, this is the worst position for Miranda. You can tell there's quite a bit of panic because this is Jillian Robertson's best position without a doubt. So if you're Team Miranda, you just got to get back up to your feet.
Matt, we're about a minute in so far. You got Maverick up against the cage. Robertson did a great job at earning that takedown, getting the back, flipping her down to the mat. And you got Maverick with her back to the cage. And you talk about a panicked look in someone's eye. That's an awful position to be in with a grappler, the skill level of the Canadian here.
It's not as bad right now. It's not like Robertson had her back. She does have her in a bit of a head and arm choke position, so Miranda Maverick really has to watch where her arm is right now. And she's going to try to get her hand under the head of Robertson and try to force her over the top. It is hard because she wants to push Robertson where the cage currently is, so it'll be really hard for her to do that. Robertson from here can go for Kimuras. Maverick's doing a good job creating space underneath, though, not just letting Robertson be heavy on top. But the issue is she might give her back right now as she tries to get up to her feet.
About 2 minutes into our second round here, and Robertson really trying to work hard to advance position. She's in a bit of a half guard on the side, really trying to work in, going for mount.
Full mount. But again, Maverick's doing a good job getting that butterfly hook on the far left side.
Oh, she got herself in an awful position with Robertson taking the back as Maverick tries to stand back up.
Robertson doing a great job of the far ankle control, but she might be too high on the back of Maverick. If Maverick can get her shoulders to the ground, she'll be able to spin. Oh, good job by Robertson following her back. That was really nice by Jillian Robertson. That's the frustrating thing about Robertson. We see how on the mat she is so good, but on the feet she's so bad. So there's these two really weird versions of her where if she just figured out like where she put her skill points earlier on in her career, it might be a lot better for her.
Halfway through, and Maverick was trying to grab a single. Now you've got Robertson on top. Everybody asking what time it is in Canada. It's 11:45 where we're at right now. And Alex Webster just absolutely not onto this fight. It's a great one.
He not down with Webster is the fight between Jillian Robertson and Miranda Maverick.
Big time fence grab. And our referee, Jason Herzog, I'm sure had something to say.
Big time rush.
Miranda Maverick doing one of the weirdest grabs of an arm I've ever seen in my entire life.
I'm almost certain this is a WWE finisher. I just can't tell you whose it was. Odd position up against the cage is the best analysis I can give you. Miranda did an okay job getting back up to her feet, but again, Robertson's still going a lot for that back as she gets the back again up against the cage.
Miranda Maverick really trying to do a good job of getting out, but right here you've got Jillian Robertson. I mean, she is swimming in these positions.
Maverick's doing a good job though defensively, but Robertson, like you said, she really is just all over on the mat.
Maverick just trying to get out of anything that she can really get her hands on. I mean, right now we have another, just one of the oddest positions I've seen tonight.
I wish I could say like, hey, they were in half guard or they were in side control. They're in a place. Jillian Robertson, again, just doing a great job staying on top of Miranda Maverick, just being really heavy, making her carry her weight, and really threatening with a lot of different submissions. And it'll be interesting to score this round, because I do think she had enough control for a 10-8 round. I just don't think that she really went for enough submissions and threatened enough or really got off enough damage. So it will be interesting to see how they judged it. I'm not advocating for a 10-8 round. I'm just saying she had enough control that it might lead you to believe that it was more than a 10-9.
As we get our round 2 ground control time. But again, I mean, you've got Robertson now trying for anything she can with about 40 seconds remaining in the round. Maverick just kind of wisping away.
Wow, that was depressing. Again, Maverick, great job getting back up to her feet. And good job by Miranda Maverick finally getting this fight back up to the feet where you know she's going to have the most success. Because on the mat, you can tell there's a massive discrepancy between the skills on the mat. And it's the same thing on the feet, too, as Maverick's trying to get some back at the end of the round. Good
Maverick really starting to land here on the feet, and that's what we saw. Really good combination.
Yeah, Maverick's really starting to let go with the hands on the feet.
These are those Macy Barber type situations where Maverick, he could have had a clash of heads.
That was close. But again, Maverick really did a good job at the end of that round, just kind of making a statement. Now, it was not enough to win the round by any means, but it was a good way to end the round.
And for me, I mean, you look at that round and you compare it with the first round. You had the first, minute and a half for Maverick. Robertson really able to control in all of the flows, like Phoenix Graves said. Diego Casas has it 1-1. I have it 1-1 as well. You agree?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Again, Maverick ended that round really well, just to put a statement on it, like, hey, I'm still here. You can't just sit wrestle me. I'm not that fatigued. But really great round for Robertson.
Really good round for Robertson to come back. And a big confidence boost after really faltering on the canvas. I mean, in terms of the striking of Robertson, especially at the end of that second round, such a real deficiency that we've seen so far from her. So we'll flip it back over to the other view. Again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Scarecrow 586 has at 1919. Maverick's looking fresh. I was surprised how fresh she looked after being kind of out-grappled in those situations where she forced her way up. And then, boom, she's the fresher fighter in terms of the striking there.
Yeah, 100%, because I do agree. Normally you have the person defending all those submissions, defending out of the positions, getting back up to your feet just to get dragged back down. You're the more tired out of the two, but again, it was. I think what Maverick did, it was more of like, hey, I'm still here, than, hey, I'm going to try to win this round. I just think it was ending the round on a really good note, showing that, hey, I'm not fatigued, I'm the fresher fighter out of the two. And like we said, this fight's simple to break down. If Robertson gets the takedown, she's much better on the mat. On the feet, it's not close, though.
She's getting
oh my goodness,
out-bombed here in the first 20 seconds. I mean, it's been all Miranda Maverick so far. She continues to land a nice kick, and I mean, Robertson really being pressured, and you rarely see fighters have the opportunity to counter well if they're not good strikers behind those two black lines.
The example I always think of is right before Poirier knocked out McGregor, he had his back to the cage, hits him with a check hook, and then circles. Unless you're Dustin Poirier or a Stipe, you should be striking behind those two.
Robertson went for a deep single, and Maverick able to defend that takedown. That's big business here in the first minute.
See, and what did I say? When Jillian Robertson really wants to wrestle, she will start to panic for those takedowns, and it is concerning. If I'm Miranda Maverick, I wouldn't engage in the grappling whatsoever, although she is in the better position by far. It's just, you were having so much success on the feet, why even risk it?
This seems like a big misstep for Miranda Maverick, who works a takedown of her own, takes the back of Robertson. We're about a minute 10 seconds into it, and I mean, Scarecrow 586 with a great point. Why is she shooting? I couldn't tell you.
I have no idea. Again, she's in a very dominant position, but when you're having that much success on the feet and the fight's not very close at all, why would you even risk it as she's about to get into full mount?
Maverick doing a good job here. I think really you just gotta totally escape, but I mean, she's starting to land some good shots in with Robertson.
Yeah, Robertson trying to go for that deep half, trying to get a sweep go at the back door, but again, Maverick's doing a really good job just being heavy on top.
At about a minute and 40 seconds. I mean, you got to watch out for those strikes to the back of the head there.
They were on the air, I think, but they were pretty close. Those were borderline shots. And again, for Robertson, work your way back up to the feet or get on top. You can't just lay on your back eating shots, because it was pretty easy to judge this. Miranda definitely won the first round. Jillian definitely won the second round. It's all coming down to this in the end.
Deep single there from Robertson, who's got the weight of Maverick on top of her head, a la Conejo. We're closing in on halfway through the round, and I mean, for Maverick, just continues to put the full pressure or weight on Robertson.
Good sprawl by Maverick, because that was the thing. If Robertson could have taken her back with that position, but Maverick did a really good job just being heavy on top.
Very surprised here. Again, talking about closing in halfway through the round, that we haven't seen Maverick just totally stand up, landing those classic 2009 type of knees to the body. You rarely ever see those anymore in MMA.
The best example of that, and I forget who we fought, but Khalil Roundtree Jr. beat somebody because they were on the ground in like a turtle position, and he just soccer kicked their body. It was tough to watch. Jillian Robertson with the Hail Mary armbar. This is a bad position for old Miranda Maverick. Got to get your arm out of there. Get out of there, Travis, as John Grisham might yell.
Todd Grisham.
Who did I say?
John Grisham.
I don't know who.
Author.
Oh, there we go. Good step over by old... No, not good by Miranda.
Miranda Maverick just going right into that submission. You hate to see it, but
well, it depends. If her elbow's out, she will be able to get out as it is now. But good job by Robertson threatening off her back. This could be an awkward position, especially for Miranda, because if Jillian can clasp her hands around the waist of Miranda Maverick, she will, in theory, have her back. Now, I understand it's a lot harder than just that, but this position forces a scramble, and that's the best case scenario for Jillian Robertson, unless you're dealing with, like, Gary Tonin on top of it.
And a good job by Maverick to get out of it. Robertson really trying to take the back.
Yeah, Robertson gets the back on the feet. And again, we see what she's going to do. She's able to transition to her back. She's going to be able to get this position. She was so dominant in it, but she might be too high.
Maverick, again, she's in a bad position. And listen, I mean, you talk about a fighter who is now almost on top. She's going to have a really tough time trying to get back up.
Miranda Maverick must be insanely physically strong, because there's been a few of these positions she just kind of powered herself out of, Derek Lewis style. So good job by Miranda Maverick so far.
I mean, you got Maverick on top of Robertson. She continues to land a good amount of strikes. Get out of there if you're in her corner. That's what you want to see. A minute remaining. This is really where we're going to learn the whole extent of this fight, because like you said, first two rounds were close. This round's been interesting. Maverick shooting. Boy,
at this point, if you're Miranda Maverick, though, as long as you're not being shot on, it doesn't matter. Like, her shooting isn't a bad idea. It's not like Jillian Robertson's going to get the sub with 30 seconds left in the fight.
As Ramon goes, "Come on, Ramon!" you know exactly what I'm all about. Super strength Maverick says branch above, and you've got Maverick just trying to land every shot that she can before the end of this round, landing some to the body, getting her head out of harm's way, and now she continues to try and get on top. We got about 18 seconds remaining, and barring any late moves or illegal shots, we should be able to get a fitting end to this round as Robertson goes for a leg, Maverick goes in for a hug, and we have a feel-good end to the end of this fight, Matt, with about 3 seconds remaining. Matt, I've got a feeling that the Fight Night Picks Kicks parlay is going to hit. We've got Maverick Robertson for me, 29-28 Maverick.
Yeah, I would say so. I think she clearly won the first and third rounds. Give the second one to Jillian Robertson. Again, that fight, you couldn't have broken down any better than if she gets the takedown, she's going to do well, and if she doesn't, she'll do quite poor. I don't know where you go from here if you're Jillian Robertson, if I'm completely honest, because I kind of know where she is in her UFC career. You can't beat people in the top 15, and you will beat some people outside the top 15. I really like Jillian Robertson. I'd say I'm her biggest fan. Well, at least under the Fight Night Picks umbrella I am, but I just don't really know where she goes next from here. I would like to see her back in American Top Team. It's not that I think Dean Thomas is a bad coach by any means, but we haven't really seen the improvements that I was hoping after she'd left that gym. And when you hear things like, oh, more personalized training, you assume like you're going to see these new massive wrinkles in that person's game, fight in, fight out, but we really just haven't seen that for Robertson. So it might be time to either A, go back to ATT or just try something different.
Justice with the more technical fighter wins. We'll wait to see our judges' scorecards, see how they thought that second round went, but overall, Bruce Buffer giving the info there. And Bruce tipped his hand, I heard earlier on in the night, with the Bukauskas-Oleszejczuk fight. I guess when he announced one judge before the other. But we'll see what we get for a decision here. Very difficult for the boys not being able to hear Bruce. But we'll see the point. We'll see Herzog lifting his arm.
Closed captions.
We'll see how this one goes. Closed captions are an awful idea, Matt.
All right, then.
All right, we're going to wait our decision. Justice saying that Maverick had you scared. Let's see what happens. Come on, Bruce. Let's go, Bruce. All right, Bruce. Miranda Maverick, the winner. And the Fight Night Picks Kicks parlay hits. And as they say with the Chicago White Sox, and you can put it on the board, yes! Well, that's how it goes. So, I'm glad that one hit. And overall, really good fight. Now, Matt, we talked about this, and it'll be some time before we get O'Malley and Almeida. We'll have a bit of time to talk about it. But again, if we look at the division here, Matt, I mean, Macy Barber only one more step up from your gal, Jillian Robertson. Then you have Tyler Santos, Shevchenko, Andrea Lee, Alexa Grasso, Roxanne Modafferi, and the list goes on. Again, we've talked about this in the past, and this is something that you've been a big proponent of. You get a win over somebody in that fringe category or right at the bottom of the rankings, that shoots you up, and there's no more kid gloves with Miranda Maverick. You're thrown straight into the fire in this division.
I disagree because of her opponent.
There's a few fighters that already have fights booked here. I don't expect the Santos booking. I don't really expect Shevchenko. For me, it's probably Andrea Lee. Maybe you go prospect Barber, but what are you thinking?
It's the most obvious pick in the world. You make her fight Roxanne Modafferi because that's who every prospect fights, and then you figure out if it's sink or swim. That's the type of fight that I talk about where, oh, if you win, this is off to the races. If being Jillian Robertson, it's not that big of a deal. It's a shallow division, and if you're not in the top 10, it really doesn't matter, for being honest. If you're in that 10 to 15 range, you're still technically unranked. You basically just beat one ranked fighter, if you will. Or you beat enough unranked people and they threw you into the rankings. I don't think beating Jillian Robertson means it's off to the races, although I guess, in theory, a fight against Modafferi would mean that it is, but I think that's the fight that you go to next. If you beat Modafferi, then okay, fine. We're ready for those bigger names in the division. You really are that number one prospect. But if you can't beat her, let's say you tear your ACL in the first round and then you just get beat up on the mat for the next 2.5, then go back, retool and whatnot. But for Miranda Maverick, the good thing about this performance is she didn't just win by outstriking Jillian Robertson. Yes, that's how she won big moments of the fight, but she did out-grapple her for some periods, and that's a really nice thing to see because not all wins are created equal, and if Miranda Maverick just went out there and we didn't see any of the defensive grappling from her, then I wouldn't think as highly of her as I do right now. The fact that I did see her get out of some bad positions, really put it on her on the feet, show good cardio, show just a good gas tank, I do think that Miranda Maverick has some of the skills that you're looking for when you're trying to think of a future contender. It's just right now, in that division especially, you have two fighters at the top, really one, and then another one who might be able to beat them. You have Valentina, who's head and shoulders above everyone. Jessica Andrade, who's had one fight in the division, and in her one fight, she knocked out the number one contender in a minute. So those two are just so far ahead of everyone else right now that Miranda Maverick You can give her a few years to kind of cook her talent, if you will. You can bring her up the slow way. Let her fight Roxanne. Let's say she beats Roxanne, then go back. Maybe we do the prospect, fight Macy Barber. There's a few other ways that you can go from that point, but I really do think the future is extremely bright for Miranda Maverick.
And if we flip it over the other way, I mean, for Jillian Robertson, we talked about it, the 5 on in. She was 3-2, now 2-3 in her last 5, and she's on a little bit of a skid here now. I mean, can you think of anybody? I know that's a tough question to put you on the spot, but can you think of anybody in the lower ranks at 25? I mean, again, Fiorot maybe. Do you go with a grappler? Like, it's pretty difficult.
That's the problem with Jillian Robertson. I don't think she gets cut, but she could, and this is my reason. We know where she's at right now.
Can rematch?
No one wants to see that. If right now with Jillian Robertson, yeah, I know where you're at. You're not good enough to be ranked, but you're too good not to be ranked. And in this division, if you're not ranked, it just means you're not that great right now. And yes, that's harsh. Of course you're good, but unless you are ranked, no one in the division really knows who you are because this is such a shallow division. So for her, I don't really know who you go back and refight because it feels like Jillian Robertson has fought everyone who isn't ranked in her own division. So I don't really know what you do next. Personally, I'd like to see her take like 9, 10, 11 months off. Just work on your game. Like, you're still really young. You don't need to just go out there and get beat constantly. Like, figure out what you're doing wrong. Work on your cardio. Work on your striking. Work on some of your takedowns to get the fight to the mat to where your advantage is. And then we can go from there. But just, for Jillian, I don't really know what you do next. Go back to ATT. That's the most important thing.
All right, Matt. So Joe Dirt's asking. Let's flip it on over. Who's next? We have Sean O'Malley taking on Thomas Almeida, who has like a totally different hairdo in this one. He looks like a changed man. Coming in here, dropping back down to 135. And you talk about the 5 on in. And this has to be the most disappointing, unless you're a Tyron Woodley fan, the most disappointing 5 on in. And it spans a long time. You go back to the Cody Garbrandt fight where he gets knocked out. Garbrandt, the young pup, 8-0 on his way up to the title 4 years and 9 months ago. Almeida retools, comes back out not that long after and TKOs Albert Morales, who... When was the last time you heard of Albert Morales? Loses a decision to Jimmy Rivera. Loses by knockout to Rob Font. I mean, Massachusetts heavy hitter, if I've ever seen one. And then he loses a decision to Jonathan Martinez after taking a long time off due to various injuries, namely the eye injury. And fights to a 30-27 loss. He got outstruck in that one, as we see some Brad Pickett highlights. Unfortunately, not for Brad Pickett. And then you look the other way for Sean O'Malley. He lost his last fight.
Just my only point on Almeida. We have a whole theory for Almeida, and we didn't even bring it up. Thomas Almeida, we talked about his losses. He hasn't beat anyone good in the UFC, not named Brad Pickett. And even Brad Pickett was at the worst point in his career. Like, yes, Thomas Almeida, he's a fun fighter. I'll admit, I thought he was going to be champion at one point. But Thomas Almeida hasn't beaten anybody good, and I do think that's an important point to bring up.
Poor Alfred Kashakian, as we get a view of that highlight from Dana White's Contender Series. If you want to see Alfred Kashakian get knocked out, you can watch a Sean O'Malley fight, or you can watch him fight Sergio Pettis over with Bellator. He knocked him out cold. That fight wasn't even close. But I look at this fight, I mean, it's a great idea and of getting a barometer on both guys. How is Thomas going to fare when he moves back down to 135? He's back at Shoot the Pucks, Diego Lima, not really spending time in Texas or the States for this one. Again, this guy was like an absolute buzzsaw 5 or 6 years ago, and now we're here. O'Malley's kind of the second coming, but he does it in a lot of different ways. For O'Malley, the jiu-jitsu's very good. The striking's on a different level. For Almeida, very, very technical boxer, and also if he incorporates the other kind of gifts that he has, he can make for a very exciting fight. So again, you have a look at this one. We talk about it in terms of the win percentages, a little bit more by knockout for Almeida than you have for O'Malley. But the big difference is, I mean, you look at the significant striking, a big advantage for Sean O'Malley for the competition that he's faced so far.
Well, that's the thing. He hasn't really had that many fights or even that many minutes in the cage, so it is kind of hard to get a good statistical analysis on what Sean O'Malley brings to the table. But he's a really good rangy striker. He's got great strikes from both sides. And listen, people, ankle health, leg health, or whatever. I'm not that concerned about that injury being re-aggravated in this fight. I gotta be honest. Like, that perennial nerve that he had hurt in his last fight, it sometimes happens, it sometimes doesn't. There's not like a rhyme or reason for it. It's not like some guys are more or less susceptible to it. He's just had 2 leg issues, and I don't think that they're that correlated. It's like Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward broke his hand, tore his ACL. Like, he just had bad injuries, but none of them were actually correlated together. And O'Malley's the same thing. They just both happen to be in his leg. And I don't think Sean O'Malley's like Kristaps Porzingis, where he's 7'3", and now his mobility is really limited from this point out. I think O'Malley will be that regular version of him. I don't think the leg kicks of Almeida will give him that much trouble. And the problem with Almeida is, again, when he really lets himself go offensively, he will get cracked and he will get hit and he will eat shots in return. So I'm concerned about Thomas Almeida. I don't like his chin at this weight class whatsoever. I think he leaves himself open, but we might see a new Thomas Almeida. He speaks English now. He has a grown man haircut. Like, Thomas Almeida might show a different side to his game. I just don't think we will.
He has a grown man haircut that he didn't have at the start of the week. So
That's what I mean.
He must have just went with the shears and gotten, like, you know, a little bit upset and riled up for the fight. And for Sean O'Malley, well, he's got a Sideshow Bob type of haircut. It's just ridiculous and stupid. And I hate it. But you look at Sean O'Malley, you talk about a guy that brands himself, I would have said good like 5-6 months ago, but now it's just kind of off the rails. I mean, listen, doubling down on just weird things. It's Megan Anderson's fault that she was upset at what we said on our show.
If Young Gravy started fighting in MMA, I feel like his shtick would be very similar to Sean O'Malley's. Yeah. So take that for what it's worth. Hopefully that's what he chooses as a walkout song, although I doubt it.
Gravy Train would be great.
It would be really cool. For Thomas Almeida, here's the problem. You said we're going to get a lot of answers from this fight. I don't think we are, because I don't really know what Sean O'Malley is, and I don't know what Thomas Almeida is, because when we talk about all the great things Almeida's done, he's beat a bunch of unranked guys, but he has been impressive. Sean O'Malley, what has he done? Beaten unranked guys, but he has looked impressive up until this point. So honestly, although I agree with you somewhat, we're going to have a little bit better of an idea. It's just there's so many question marks between these guys that I don't think I'm going to know, oh, Sean O'Malley knocked out Thomas Almeida. That means he's ready for the top 10.
You open this up talking like Britain Hart. It's like one of these guys fighting a feeling here. Like, figure it out. But again, I do think we will, because for Sean O'Malley, in the fight against Sukum Toth, you had the Liz Frank foot injury. And I talked about it.
It's so hot in this room, first of all.
I've never done so much research on soft tissue injuries and injuries below the damn waist. I mean, for Sean O'Malley, there's so many different ways that you can ruin the arch of your foot. You can pop toes. You can pop in and around where your toes are held onto your foot. You can ruin ligaments. You can have so many different soft tissue injuries as Sean O'Malley walks out looking like Dennis Rodman with that haircut. And again, weed leaf into the back of his hair.
Gang, bro.
Man. That's just stupid. But you look at Sean O'Malley, foot injuries notwithstanding, they're one of those things that you either come back from them good or you don't. It's like Tommy John back in the 90s.
This is like no, it's not. Stop right now, Craig. Foot injuries aren't as serious as you're making them out to be. It's not like you break your foot and it's over. If you're Yao Ming, yes.
You don't want to break your foot.
You don't want to, but you're making it seem like it's a death sentence, where in reality it isn't, especially not for a young guy like O'Malley.
Which is where I was going with it. But with the peroneal nerve injury, I mean, that's one of those things that, boom, you're usually back as quick as possible. Exactly. It's the ligaments in and around that bone in your knee, and when they're pinched, you just kind of lose feeling a little bit. And it's not ever a good one that you want to see. But again, for O'Malley, I doubt that we see it rear its ugly head in this one. So, if Justice is saying agree, anyone who made money hit the like button, you can hit up the super chat too for the boys. But we're getting set for our third fight. I mean, you have to think, after this, co-main event time. Like, we're moving.
Stipe Luque, gonna put it on Tyron Woodley, question mark? It's weird that that's even a conversation that we're having. Like, again, at UFC 205, I never thought, listen, your boy was even a Luque fan back then. I didn't think after knocking out Bilal Muhammad, he'd be like, oh, he's ready for Tyron Woodley, but here we are.
Diego Costas watching the fights without any pressure now. If I make money on it, would be the Gracie MMA gods. I'm not worried anymore. The question mark kicks parlay hits, so I'm happy.
Fun.
That's all that matters. Sean O'Malley with a decided 4-inch height advantage, coming in with 2 inches of reach. He is 3 years younger than his elder Thomas Almeida.
This is a bit of a monkey paw wish, Craig, but if you had to either have Sean O'Malley's tattoos or Gavin Tucker's tattoos, who would you pick?
The wife doesn't like the Gavin Tucker tattoos because it looks like somebody just had a stencil.
They're both bad.
But for me, I really do like, you know, if you can incorporate like tattoos that don't mix together and it's not in like a sleeve or I like that. No pattern. Love it.
Well, they both have that. So which one are you picking?
I'm going Tucker.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't have funky colored hair and you're never going to find my pot leaf in my hair. So we'll get set for that as we get the particulars on our blue corner. Thomas Almeida representing Brazil. And we talked about it at a Shoot the Box Diego Lima. We've had so many good fighters, even recently. I mean, Maeda Bueno Silva, and you had De Paula also from Shoot the Box. But again,
Diego Lima looked
Charles
good against
Oliveira.
Sorry to bring
that's
that
a different Diego
no,
Lima.
I know, I'm kidding.
And we have Sean O'Malley representing the MMA Lab, among other gyms, with his buddy, Tim Welch, his podcast partner, Tim Welch, in his corner. A couple of goofballs.
Do you know what fighter this year, just a side note, just because I'm thinking right now, do you know what fighters impressed me the most this year?
Hit me.
Amanda Lemos, I think, has gained the most stock in my brain since the start of the year. No, and I understand, Craig. Listen, okay, Craig, settle down. But I think she's an odd prospect of the year pick.
At a very advanced stage.
At an advanced stage, but again, it seems like she's really starting to make strides. I'm excited for this fight as O'Malley comes out in the southpaw.
Nice leg kicks from O'Malley, who's starting it off the boxing, like you said, out of that wide southpaw stance here early. Not giving Thomas Almeida time to get ready. Brandon Gerhart, body language expert, saying Sean looks nervous AF. I think he looks pretty calm to me.
Yeah, no, again, this is a really fun fight, and it will be, like we like to say. Been spending most of their lives living in this striker's paradise. These guys both know how to strike. They both know how to throw a wild variety of techniques. So excited for this one.
Leonardo saying you're Brazilian, but Tomingas. I'm trying to pronounce it right because we got called out. The Tomingas? Is that how to pronounce it properly, Leonardo? You tell me. We're more than 30 seconds into this one. And you've got Almeida just kind of playing it easy. Just downloading the game plan early, which
he's eating a few shots. Rarely
works well against a guy like O'Malley. That if he's working, he's usually doing it in quick succession. Nice leg kick there from Tomingas, who gets his leg.
Way better leg kick by O'Malley, though.
Absolutely spun around like a spinner in a pinball game.
And this is the thing. O'Malley can just stay at such a big range. And you kind of see it right now. He's such a big bantamweight.
Starting to flow there a little bit with a little bit of a stunt when he's switching stances. O'Malley filling it.
Yeah, he's throwing a lot of feints, really just trying to see what the reaction of Almeida is going to be. And he's doing a great job at range right now, giving him a lot of looks, too, going between southpaw and orthodox quite often.
Brian Battaglia, the closest I've ever been to New Mexico was Oklahoma, and it was a great time. Nice right hand there from Almeida.
Didn't land, though.
Scarecrow, no chin versus no ankles. Leonardo, I must have pronounced it properly, I'm assuming. Sean looking very good early. You like the pressure, says Justice. We're about a minute and a half in.
Ooh, good body kick. That one landed clean. O'Malley looking good early. Really just letting his hands go, flowing.
Hands started to pop down a little bit from Almeida. He's got the back up there now. Hayden saying, what a round.
Good left hand by Almeida coming over the top. And that's the thing. O'Malley has to move his feet and his head. He can't just move his head because sometimes he will just kind of get caught stagnant and then you can hit him. But for the most part, O'Malley's doing a great job in this first round, keeping distance.
Almeida really being conservative with those leg kicks too, spinning around like a top. We're about 2 minutes into our first round. Almeida looking to press the action.
Ooh, fakes the spin, gives him the hips. O'Malley with his back up against the cage, and that's probably the worst place for O'Malley. For Almeida, it will be interesting to see if he does decide to do that kind of scorched earth tactic where if he gets O'Malley up against the cage, he'll really start to unload. But right now, he's more than happy to just kind of stand at range, which is surprising because when O'Malley is going, he's the much faster guy and he's landing first.
You got a clinch situation here, and now we're out of it. A little bit of a cup check there on O'Malley. Nice leg kick. Those leg kicks are finding a home early for the man with the green trunks.
O'Malley looking good so far. He really is. And I do like how he can switch stances because he is a fighter who, it's not like he can only throw certain things from one stance and not from the other. He is very ambidextrous from both sides, and that's a really nice thing to see from a young fighter.
Oh!
Big head kick from
Lands
O'Malley.
the knee. That's it.
Dropped him.
Mark Smith, end it, buddy.
It's
Apparently,
good.
we're all good.
Craig. So he's got Almeida very hurt up against the cage, and O'Malley just really throwing a lot of feints, giving Thomas Almeida a lot of different looks as he lands another right over the top. And for Almeida, he's really just in a big defensive mode. Here's the good thing.
Whoa! Spinning leg kick.
For Almeida, he has good recovery. He just does get hurt when he gets hit clean.
All right, Matt. Almeida's in a world of hurt right now. He goes to grab for the clinch, but he is rocked. And now you've got Almeida really in a bad spot. Nice knee up the middle from O'Malley, who trips a little bit and switches stances.
Worried about them ankles, but again, O'Malley's really just teeing off on him, especially in boxing range. He does, and great comment there by Scarecrow, good range management. He's got that really good pull, too. It's what McGregor does really, really well, but O'Malley's doing it great. He's getting his head at a distance, and he's really always making sure he responds.
Now we've got War Almeida going after those legs. Might have been a little bit of a cup check there. O'Malley trying to reach for some of those kicks, and Justice bringing up another good point. Not enough volume for Almeida. Justice, we got to get you on the show. You're doing a great job over there in the comments section. Oh, you got a spinning wheel kick that missed this time for O'Malley.
I think O'Malley's better on the mat, so it's probably not a good idea for Almeida to just jump into his guard. For Almeida, like you had said, he's either got to uptick his volume or he's going to have to get O'Malley's respect with a big shot. We saw him land one good left over the top when he was moving forward. He needs more of that kind of action.
Yeah, I mean, we got about 40 seconds remaining in our first round, and I mean, this is going to be an interesting one as we get down the stretch. You got Almeida now pressing the action. He's got O'Malley with his back up against the cage behind the lines. Good really nice head kick there. Another nice one for O'Malley that lands.
In case you didn't know, Sean O'Malley's very good at striking. That's really been the key of this round.
And I mean, for me, Almeida trying to do his best, really closing the
good shots
distance.
by Almeida. He did land a couple clean left hands there, or right hands, sorry.
When we get War Almeida, he's landing more often than not.
He is, but again, he's just not landing that much, and that's the key. When he does let his hands go, you're right, he is landing, but he's really let his hands go on 2 separate occasions in this round. He landed a good left over the top, and he landed 2 good right hands, so he isn't out of it, but the fact that he basically got dropped twice and I thought he was knocked out is a little concerning. Great first round for Sean O'Malley, though.
29-6, the total shots. It'll be interesting to see if in the corner we get any ice on that leg, because we did see a little bit of a misstep there from O'Malley. We also saw one right in the center of the cage with nothing around it from Almeida. There was one point where he kind of looked like he stumbled a little bit on one of his feet.
Now, you might be surprised, Craig, but I'm much more concerned about the head kick that Thomas Almeida ate and the fact that he did go down because he got hit in the head so hard. So I'm a little bit more concerned on that than speculating about Sean O'Malley's leg health. But
now, we both have that round for O'Malley. Do you think any of the judges saw it by 10-8?
Unless Adelaide Bird was, like, trying to get Canelo to win and she thought Thomas Almeida was Canelo, no, Sean O'Malley won that round. I don't think it was a 10-8. It might have been if you wanted to give it one. I wouldn't be against it, but yeah, I think Almeida's out.
John Quinn looking like a guy that didn't tune into question mark kicks.
Yeah, John Quinn, Craig, Craig doesn't know what's up.
Craig does know what's up. It just takes a week of learning about...
But you disagreed with all those things that I said in the original video, and then you were like, you know what, Matt, you were right.
Horny Carpenter saying, is it going the distance? If it continues the way it went in the first round, I think we're going to get a finish.
Yeah, I do think O'Malley's just one clean shot away from finishing it, and I doubt he'll go for the Mark Hunt walk-off the next time. He'll probably try to finish it on the mat. So, again, for O'Malley, stand at range, try to hit him with those longer distance attacks, because when Almeida is up close, he can land some hooks, but O'Malley's at his best when he's doing this. Even if he does have his back up against the cage, as long as he's not pressed right up against it, he still has some movement, so O'Malley's going to be able to run away with this fight, you would assume.
We're about 30 seconds into the round. A nice off-balance land for O'Malley, and again, you liken that to almost Jorge Masvidal when he's off and he's able to get all that weight into the strike.
The only difference is for O'Malley, he was throwing as a reaction, whereas Masvidal was doing that as on purpose. That was really the only difference. But again, for Almeida, that's the type of technique he could use, because if he stutters his feet, he might be able to land with a left over the top, over the shoulder of O'Malley, but the way he's throwing, he's just kind of standing at range with a guy who's very, very good at striking at range.
And we're seeing the same Almeida that we did see against Martinez. The only trouble is, in both of these fights, low output. And that's been an issue.
Well, he also lost him, too, which is a little concerning.
Little bit of a trip there from O'Malley.
Okay, every time O'Malley gets hit in the leg, it doesn't mean his legs have broken.
You don't like to see a guy trip like that.
Just you're reacting like he's getting overhanded every time his leg gets touched. It's not that big of a deal.
Really good movement there to get out of the way of that heavy overhand by Almeida. And you have a double up on the jab.
I hate how much reacting Almeida's doing. You know what I mean? Like, he's not the first one to go. He's waiting for O'Malley to make his move, trying to counter. But he's not landing most of his counters, so you're going to have to move forward at some point.
Those kind of oblique type kicks from O'Malley, you saw a big reaction from Almeida the first time. Now we got 2, then we've had 3 so far in succession. And you can see the quality of strikes, I would say, more so the bevy of strikes that we've had from O'Malley. 12 to the head, 14 to the body, 9 to the legs. But again, those oblique kicks to the knee, they've really caused issues for Almeida, who's been a little tentative getting in close.
Well, that was the story in the first round before the oblique kick. So now that the technique itself is to make him do that, it's even worse. And you're right. The great thing about the oblique kick is it makes your opponent back up too. They can't move forward when you throw the technique, as Sean O'Malley seems to hurt Almeida again on the break.
We're starting to get into a little bit of a flow state. And from southpaw, 2 nice lefts landing for O'Malley. We're about halfway through our second round here so far. Phoenix Graves want Davey, who's still in the Navy. I don't think Dana White wants that fight.
No, you keep Davey Grant away from Sean O'Malley, because that's Dana White's cash cow, and he doesn't want Davey Grant anywhere near him.
Davey Grant just ending hype trains.
I want to send Jonathan Martinez to be in the top 15 of whatever division he chose.
Thomas Almeida really trying to take one out of the book of O'Malley with a spinning wheel kick that misses. We get about 2 minutes remaining in our second round. That jab popping out there for O'Malley, looking slick.
And Almeida's, he's not fighting a good fight, let's just be honest. Because he does need to get O'Malley's respect somehow. Because if O'Malley can just keep on standing on the outside, he's going to be able to land these strikes all day long.
Nice right, almost lands for Almeida, but he gets countered as O'Malley just walks him into the middle of the cage.
Yeah, and Sean O'Malley, comment there from Justice, he is doing a really good job with his own offensive leg kicks. The thing is, It'd be nice if he threw more of them because he's either throwing a lot of kicks or throwing a lot of punches. He's not really mixing the two together as well as he was in the first round, and that's what I'd like O'Malley to go back to doing. Because if he threw his hands and then threw his kicks to end his combinations, kind of like you see Holly Holm or even Carlos Condit do, he could probably get him out with that.
About a minute and 20 remaining here in our second round, and it's been more of O'Malley in this one. Not as dominant as the first, but still really getting it done. And I mean, for Gazbach, he must be ahead of us. What are you doing? What are you doing?
But really good job for O'Malley so far. Again, completely in control of the second round. The first round, 10-8. Second round, probably 10-9 for him so far as we have a minute left. But again, Almeida's having a really hard time with the distance between these two guys. He's not throwing anything to really get on the inside, and he's just sort of standing on the outside being a punching bag, if you will.
Really good power jab that landed for O'Malley as he closes distance here with about 48 seconds left in the round.
And when O'Malley lands really anything with any level of power behind it, he's getting a big reaction out of Almeida. Like, he's wobbling him every time. Whereas when Almeida lands, O'Malley's just kind of okay with it.
I mean, a really good kick there so far for Almeida as he was backed up and he kind of gains a bit of the center of the cage. 30 seconds remaining in our second round. But like you said, I mean, O'Malley plotting with his kicks. He's able to get that jab out there, make distance, slips, gets hit hard by Almeida there.
I think O'Malley's still okay, though. I'm not as concerned. But yeah, good shot on the way down. And Almeida, you would think he's going to try to get on top of him, but again, Sean O'Malley's really good on the mat. It's something that he doesn't really get the credit for, but I would say his jiu-jitsu is well, probably not as good as his striking, but O'Malley is really good off his back.
Justice saying, I don't think I've ever seen a fighter look so comfortable out there. Looks like someone is playing Sean in the UFC 4 game. Well, listen, I mean, he's got the hair for it. He looks a little bit like a creative player. And at the same time, those creative players, they always just spam their signature moves, and it's never much fun.
I get hit with a lot of spinning wheel kicks in UFC 4 online, and I get extremely upset. Great second round for O'Malley, though. He is very much in control of this fight. For what Thomas Almeida, again, I would be surprised if he doesn't go for some sort of a clinch in the third round, sorry. We know how good he is. He's got great elbows going over the top. Just try something different. That's the real key to this third round. The first round, you stood at range. You got pieced up. You almost got finished. Second round, you stood at range. You got pieced up. You didn't almost get finished, so good news. But in the third round, you can't just stand at range and hope that one of your soft leg kicks is going to take out the leg of O'Malley.
You look at the striking differential, 55-14, and it's not like we've had any meaningful grappling exchanges.
So I'm going to bring up a very odd fight, but I think it's an important fight to talk about. When Rory McDonald fought Jake Ellenberger, it was an awful fight. It was terrible. But that was when Jake Ellenberger was knocking a lot of guys out and moving forward. What Rory McDonald did was, and this is much more the threat of the wrestling, he put him into a defensive shell just by being good at everything, making him think, and it feels like that's what Almeida is in right now. He's sort of being overloaded the way that I would say LeBron was in the finals against the Mavs in 2011. He's thinking about so much that is preventing him from going forward and really being aggressive himself.
And you got really in this one, Almeida taking the center of the cage, really getting all over that monster logo. Yikes. And you've got Sean O'Malley throwing a nice kick right up the center.
Yeah, and hopefully we can avoid some illegal strikes. Again, for O'Malley, you would assume, just wants to keep this at range. Keep on darting in and out. Try to land your big strikes on the outside. But, oh my goodness, that was a filthy leg kick. Every time Almeida lands a leg kick, it's like he's reminding Sean O'Malley to throw one, and then O'Malley immediately responds with one.
And if you see O'Malley landing that nice calf kick from range, and he's got a long strike, it's always a tough one to see in your periphery, but at the same time, from a guy that's as rangy like that, it's just a really difficult look, especially when you always have to worry about the threat of the jab as well. And we laughed about it last weekend, and then it ended up the Trevin Giles power jab really did do him a lot of favors. But for a guy like O'Malley, he has had a lot of power in that jab where we've gotten big reactions out of Almeida early in this
for sure, every single time. And the great thing about the leg kick of O'Malley is he can stand so far away that it's really hard to counter him with punches if you are the size of Almeida. Unless you're a guy like I know they're not in the same weight class, but just size-wise, unless you're a guy like a Max Holloway, who is tall and rangy, it's going to be really hard to counter him off those leg kicks, unless you can get really inside to his range when he immediately throws them. But Almeida's definitely not doing that so far. Also, checking them works.
A lot of people having O'Malley by knockout. I mean, listen, I don't want to discount that, but really, if you're O'Malley, if you're Tim Welch, if you're somebody in his corner, if you're a loved one from Montana, you just want to see him get back in the win column.
Yeah, and really for, oh wow, he was landing some good shots there. Good head movement too by Sean O'Malley. That's the thing. Defensively, his head movement has been quite good. Almeida's landed a couple times, but he hasn't been able to land much.
Really nice left hand there from Almeida. So we close in at about 3 minutes remaining in the round.
Tommy Noss's face is starting to show it a little bit though.
He's starting to close distance, so he's starting to get after it. But again, we haven't really seen him get his hands going, and we've seen him land some nice shots so far. Now he's just starting to whiff. And again, you talk about a guy that's trying to cut the cage. He's trying to do the right things here, but you got a striker that's so unorthodox in O'Malley. It's
but he's
hard
not
to
doing the right things. He's just following him. Like, you have to cut him off. And the fact that Almeida, he'll just throw his shot and let O'Malley exit to one side or the other, and he's just okay with it. You have to cut him down and kind of square him up into one of the corners. Now, I know the Octagon doesn't have a corner per se, but if you ever see a guy like Usman, he can just counter people with his footwork, and Almeida, you can tell, he just isn't able to do that.
John Quinn, choo-choo, it's a donation train. Well, we appreciate you. The overhands there from Thomas Almeida. And now we have both guys starting to exchange. About 2 minutes and 18 seconds remaining in the round. O'Malley wants a fight.
Yeah, and O'Malley, he really is landing every time he's letting his hands go.
Now he's starting to really have a lot of success. Again, you talked about it at the start of the round. You know, maybe we get a little bit of an Almeida clinch. Maybe we'd see him try to start to do some work there. He's surprised he hasn't really gone for it.
Yeah, because again, he's just doing the thing that's already lost him 2 rounds. So unless he's going to just somewhat... Like, unless he pulls out a Showtime kick that none of us have known about for the last, I guess, 10 years of his career, it's a really odd style to go for. And I understand this, how Almeida wins the majority of his fights, and the fact that Sean O'Malley's able to out Almeida is somewhat impressive. But for Almeida, you got to try something different. Nothing's worked for the first 10 minutes. Why would you expect it to work for the last 5?
Really nice shot there from O'Malley, who's just starting to dart in and out. And if I can say one really positive thing about O'Malley's fight here, that, listen, he had a hard time with before. He's done a good job of moving away from those kicks. We've really seen him move quite well as we approach about 1:20 remaining in this one. And that right hand for O'Malley from the orthodox stance really finding
good shot by O'Malley. He hurt Almeida bad. Yeah, Almeida's out.
Mark Smith!
That punch was not needed. Sean O'Malley.
And listen,
swish at the end.
That's not an O'Malley problem. I mean, holy smokes. We didn't need to see a shot like that whatsoever.
Wow. Yeah, that shot on the inside. It was hard to see, so just to run back. Thomas Almeida kind of had his head down. It looked like he was going to clinch. Gets hit hard with the right hand, but wow.
Yeah, I never really seen a guy who was trying to call fights toss popcorn in his mouth when he had a speaking part. But for Thomas Almeida, that extra shot was totally unnecessary. And I mean, listen, could the fight him and stop in the first round? Maybe. Could the fight him and stop when he hit the ground and spun around and just kind of laid there? For sure.
It's tough. It's easy to be mad right now, Craig, but honestly, it was kind of hard to see the shot that put Almeida down. Like, you didn't even know he was hurt when he first got hurt until the second shot landed. It was a hard shot to see on the way in because it didn't look like it hurt him immediately. So, again, I'm not saying it was a good stoppage by any mean, but I think the outrage is a little too much. Like, it wasn't great, but it was kind of hard to see that first shot. But Mark Smith's not a great ref by any means, so I'm not here defending Mark Smith. But, oh yeah, that shot really hurt him and his legs were out from under him.
That was a very interesting end to a fight.
Ooh!
That was just savage. We didn't need to see that.
Oh, the old turnaround.
Gross.
Wow. For Sean O'Malley, though, the accuracy, that's really nice to see. What I do like about Sean O'Malley, and I always think about Darren Till when I think about this, is when Darren Till has things that he meets you with. When guys try to move forward on him, he's like a brick wall where he's just got these certain contact points that guys run into. There's a little bit of that with Sean O'Malley. When guys do try to close that distance, he meets them with something. Whether it is that oblique kick, we saw that a little bit more in the second round. If it is a knee when guys are on their way inside. I don't like the flying knees that he kept on throwing and landing on his back, but still, techniques like that are going to prevent forward movement. For a lot of guys at 135, they're going to need forward pressure to land on Sean O'Malley, so really great job with O'Malley.
Man, I mean, overall, pretty darn good night. I mean, so far for the picks last weekend, it was pretty good, but I mean, so far through this, we got 8 fights. You're 7-1, I'm 6-2. I mean, question mark kicks parlay hit. She's a big night for the boys.
Yeah, it's great so far. And again, we've got 2 amazing fights next. I'm super excited for Vicente Luque, Tyron Woodley. Again, which Tyron Woodley do we get? Do we get that super amazing version, or do we get that terrible version that doesn't even win rounds? So, really fun fight coming up next. And then, of course, the heavyweight title fight. Francis Ngannou, Stipe Miocic, numero 2. It's an exciting fight. We don't really know what's going to happen, and that's the most exciting thing. And I understand, but you never know what's going to happen in a fight. When Francis Ngannou fights, it is like nothing else. It really is. It's basically Deontay Wilder if he was in MMA and didn't wear fancy cages or fancy clothes to get him tired on the way to the cage. I can't express how excited I am for this heavyweight title fight, and I'm just excited for the co-main event to set us up for it too. Oh, Thomas Almeida. Hey, you can't fix someone's chin. It's an issue. There was some pushback on Craig when I said that, when I'm worried about him at 135, Thomas Almeida just can't eat shots very well, and I don't know what it is. I think it is a case of he left too much of himself in the regional scene. If you go back and watch Thomas Almeida fights,
it's insane.
yeah, like, he basically was like, sure, I can probably eat overhand rights all the time forever until the end of days, and then you realize that those will eventually catch up to you, and then when you fight these guys like Sean O'Malley, like Cody Garbrandt, like Rob Font, for instance, like, they're going to hit you clean, and you're probably going to go down, so... Sucks for Thomas Almeida, again, a guy who I thought at one point would be UFC champion, and now he's getting flatlined by Sean O'Malley, but just how the mighty have fallen with old Thomas Almeida.
Yikes, you hate to see it, but I mean, we're getting more highlights out of this one. And for Sean O'Malley, again, you're talking about a guy that he's been in there, he's been in the rankings, he's been on the fringe, now he's back again. You have to expect maybe he gets a number next to his name. But again, you talk about the opponents up there. If we go 10 down,
he's not getting a number next to his name.
You have a Sunsao, Rivera, Davashvili, Stamen, Phillips, and Vera, who's coming off a loss to Jose Aldo that's a 5. You have to expect that he's going to punch up in his next one.
He's not getting a ranked fighter without a doubt. Like, here's the problem with Sean O'Malley. Why are people so against just bringing out prospects slow? I don't get it whatsoever. Like, he lost to Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera is barely ranked. He is number 15, I believe. So, if you're Sean O'Malley, it's okay to fight outside the rankings. Keep on getting your name out there. People dislike him quite heavily, to be really honest. So the more you fight, more people are going to react to it, be that positive or negative, and more people are going to have Sugar Sean's name in their mouth, and that's the most important thing. So for O'Malley, I don't think it is a rush to get him up into the top 15 yet. I think bantamweight's one of the hardest divisions in the UFC, so there's no hurry to get him there. Maybe a guy like a Song Yadong, who is outside of the top 15, who's a really fun matchup, but even him I would be tentative. I don't even think that'd be the matchup. I would keep on feeding Sean O'Malley, guys, and do it the way they do in boxing. Slowly work Sean O'Malley up. He does have star potential. I wouldn't say superstar potential, but he's definitely going to be a bigger name than, and I hate to say this about the title fight, but Stipe's not a big name UFC champ. He's just like UFC champion A. He's just a name. He's not a big one. He's not a small one. He's just a
Modelo one.
Yeah, like he is my baseline for stars in the UFC as we get a shot of Megan Fox.
Now, is Machine Gun Kelly going to sing Stipe in, and is Travis Barker
and one of the
Khloe Kardashian? No, Kourtney Kardashian.
There we go. Goodness, the stars are out tonight, folks.
There's a guy that looks like Macaulay Culkin in the background that probably isn't. Where's Anthony Kiedis?
Probably, oh, he was already long gone. Like, he showed up for the prelims. He doesn't even care about the main card. Anthony Kiedis is so underground with his MMA. Like, he only watches jungle fights and UFC prelims. That's it. Anthony Kiedis, a real fan. I want to get your pick for the main event in this aspect. Do you think it is as black and white as if it goes past a round and a half, Francis isn't going to have much to offer? Do you think Francis, if he doesn't get taken out immediately in the first or second round, do you think he can offer some sort of resistance in that third, in that fourth round? Or do you really think it is as black and white as he's got about a 6-minute window and then it's closed?
That's about it. I mean, it's a 7.5 minute window is what it is for me. Because again, you start to see some belly breathing as we go into the end of the first, into the second. And that's one of those things. I mean, do I think that his cardio's improved? I assume so. Do I think that his wrestling's improved? At Extreme Couture with some of the bigger guys, I assume
and
so.
Usman.
And Usman. But you look at Francis Ngannou, and he's kind of like a flock of seagulls. Is he a one-hit wonder? Yeah, he kind of is. I mean, you go back to his last fight, and if we're going to criticize Brendan Schaub, has he improved or has he regressed? Well, apparently he's regressed in one fight where you're taking on such a highly technical kickboxer. Forget about Jairzinho's last fight, even though it was technical.
Well, this is the thing.
Very
Cyril
technical
Gane's
guy.
amazing.
But when you're Francis Ngannou and you're fighting a technical kickboxer, what's one way to beat him? Well, you can wrestle him. What's another way to beat him? Well, you can go putt-putt golf on it and just windmill the shit out of it. And you're going to swipe that ball out of there like your Dikembe Mutombo in the 90s. So if you look at Francis Ngannou for what it's worth, there's pretty much one way to get it done. SC Shoop saying, let these guys beat up some lower talent to build the highlights. But again, Sean O'Malley's been close and in the rankings before, so it's pretty tough.
But it was only Marlon Vera. This is my point. It's not like Marlon Vera's Jose Aldo. Like, if you lose to him, that means that you're not ready for the top 15, guys. That means that it is time to progress. And beating Thomas Almeida doesn't really tell me that much. That was my point before the show. Knocking out Thomas Almeida is the easy way to beat Thomas Almeida. Now, I will admit, the fact that he did do it near the end of the third round and we got more minutes of Sean O'Malley was nice. And that's the biggest takeaway from that last fight. Even if Sean O'Malley didn't knock him out and he just won by decision, the fact that he was in there for 3 rounds, I think, was really important.
To go with Kevin Erickson's comment of Francis will never have cardio, he's built for power and power only.
True.
When they built him in a lab many years ago, they only had the song Fuel by Metallica. And I get it, he's older than that song, but somebody gave him fuel, they gave him fire, they gave him that which Dana White desired. And I mean, for him, his striking's insane. And to have the power, it's insane. And for gift of nothing, they're saying in boxing, box a fighter and fight a boxer. It's always funny, you know, when you watch a boxing fight, and it's like, this guy's a boxer and this guy's a puncher. It's very much in this fight. Stipe Miocic has that really technical boxing, nice head movement, and he also has the threat of the takedown and everything else.
Well, he's got big power on the feet, too.
That goes along with a guy that had a career in baseball in college, but also wrestling. So always a fun one there. But in that fight, there's so many different things to look at.
Yeah, here's the thing. Again, I don't think people are respecting the punching power of Stipe Miocic, and I would include myself in that category. I think Stipe can knock out Francis, but no one said that so far. Like, everyone's like, oh, Stipe could beat him by decision, and that's about it. Stipe Miocic has an insane amount of power in his hands. He knocks out pretty much everyone he fights, unless your name's, well, I guess he even knocked out DC, and not in the trilogy fight, but Stipe has that really fun combination of output, power, and cardio that just not many guys at heavyweight have, and that's the thing that could overwhelm Francis.
And to get into the comments, Kevin, I went to go see Metallica at Rock the Hill 2011 in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and it was Metallica, there was Protest the Hero, Coheed and Cambria. Who else was there? Seether was there. Good show put on by Seether. You know, you might not like the hard rock stylings of those boys, but they do a good show, and it was a good concert, and I'd go see them again.
Branch above, yeah, Luque all day.
I look at this fight again. You have Tyron Woodley taking on Vicente Luque. Highly interesting fight because for Tyron Woodley, he had a great run at the top, and it has been a disastrous fall from the top. So you hate to see it for him. For Vicente Luque, he's just beaten the fools he should beat. And he's lost to some very high-level guys.
He has, but the good thing about Vicente Luque is it seems like his resume's improved over time. You know, like, he beat Bilal Muhammad before it was cool, and now you know how good Bilal Muhammad is. He beat Randy Brown, but that was after. Like, Randy Brown's a really good fighter, don't get me wrong. Thank you, Mitch. Very nice of you.
Mitch hitting us up from Australia. Appreciate that.
Very nice of you, Mitch. Thank you for the support. But I forget where I was.
Matt, I mean, I look at this one. Let me talk about it. So you got Vicente Luque, and you talk about the former opponents that he's had. For the man himself, Vicente Luque, the fight that makes me so nervous, and there's a lot of them. I mean, he's a little bit bloodied up when he's fighting Rude Boy Randy Brown. The fight that scares me off of Vicente Luque against a lot of the high-level guys, that Bam Bam fight against Brian Barberena, that was absolute blood and guts, and Barberena landed. Now, is 170 the sneakiest division that on any given Sunday a guy outside of the rankings could give a guy in the rankings a hard time? Sure, bantamweight's like that, lightweight to an extent, but maybe not the bottom, but welterweight's stacked that way. I mean, look, Mike Perry's fighting Daniel Rodriguez soon. That's
That'd be a good fight. Here's the thing. Everyone gets dropped on their way up. Leon Edwards got dropped by Brian Barberena, but no one brings that up in fights. You didn't bring that up when he fought Bilal Muhammad.
Didn't need to.
Brian Barberena has good power. If he drops you, it's not the end of the world. The more impressive thing was that Vicente Luque got up from fight-ending shots and knocked out Brian Barberena in the last round. And he also landed bombs throughout that whole entire thing. I think Vicente Luque is going to win by stoppage. I really do. I think the fact that Tyron Woodley gives up so much ground and puts his back up against the cage, yes, he can land that one shot, but my issue with Woodley is how many times does he even throw that one shot in the run of a fight? How many times do we see Tyron Woodley really let that right hand go? You could count on one hand how many times he did that against Gilbert Burns. He sort of threw it and stopped and threw it and stopped and doesn't do anything in combination. That's my concern.
One thing that you hate to see is when they throw it up to a highlight reel and the majority of the highlights, they have sponsors on their trunks. That's a bad look. So
good point.
You look at Tyron Woodley. Listen, he's had plenty of highlights with the UFC trunks on, for sure, when he was champion. But then again, that 3-on-in, it's really troubling. Now, they're probably the top 3 fighters in this division. Usman, then you got the fight against Burns, then you got the fight against Covington. Covington, the only one able to finish him, but it was an absolute drubbing in the other two. So it's really difficult for me to look at Tyron Woodley, who has his headphones in. He's probably listening to his own beats. This is a guy that had the job with TMZ. He was on the desk just about every weekend when it was Fox. Like, Tyron Woodley's been in some big spots, and he's caught a lot of flack on the internet. Now, for me, again, it's hard not to let that bias creep in, because when it was Craig Allen Fight Fan, not Craig Allen MMA Media, Tyron Woodley was my guy. There's a framed Tyron Woodley picture here somewhere.
You forgot one of Tyron Woodley's jobs, and that's spitting fire.
Oh, yeah, I mean, just rapping bars. But, I mean, for me, Tyron Woodley hasn't looked like that guy in a while. Now, could he...
To everyone.
Could he turn it back? 100%. You can't sleep on power. That's the last thing to go, as they always say. And he made weight in this one. You like to see it, right?
His eyes were sunken in, and his voice didn't sound great.
He's got Dean Thomas in his corner, who's already 0 for 1 on the night. We're getting a little bit of a playful hug from the boys, but yikes.
I'm excited for this fight. I really am. But again, I think this is the end of the road for Tyron Woodley. And I do think you reached a certain point in your career where your priorities are different. Like, I'm a lot more different now at 22 than I was even at 20. I can only imagine Tyron Woodley at the age of, 38, I believe?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, your life changes a lot, but between the time that you were champ and now, and he's no longer champ, he has opportunities outside the UFC. Tyron Woodley is one of the few fighters who, I don't think he needs fighting. He can do other stuff. He doesn't need fighting to then set up the next stage of his life. Like, he does speak well. He does have other media opportunities. It's not like this is it for Tyron Woodley, like he's a Diego Sanchez. And that's why it does suck that...
ATT's Diego Sanchez.
But that's why I said, Vicente Luque, guys in the top 15 don't really want to fight him. He is a very good finisher. He's a dangerous fighter. You don't normally accept that fight unless you're on a 3-fight losing streak and you're not really in the position to start turning fights down. And that's really what Tyron Woodley found himself in. He had to accept this fight against Vicente Luque. And could he go out there, overhand right, cost check style, knock him out? Yes, he could. But the much more likely outcome is that Vicente Luque can back Woodley up and start landing in combination.
Matt, the rest of these fights are gravy. The boys hit the fight night picks, kicks, prediction. Well, we hit a lot of the predictions, but we hit the parlay. So, listen, I'm just enjoying the night. We got Woodley, we got Luque, 9-year age gap between these two guys. And if you really do focus on it, I mean, you got a comment, the only way Tyron can win is by takedowns. I'd like to see that. If Matt could never say how old he is again, you'd donate $10,000, Matt.
No,
Don't say it.
Don't worry. Never.
Don't say it. I mean, at 26, I get hit on my tailbone hockey last week, and I'm still sore this week.
Craig tells me war stories from a church league hockey.
It's
not a
intense
great
hockey.
way to impress your brother.
Very rough hockey. But we've got Vicente Luque. Get the particulars on him. Kevin's saying heavyweight ages don't matter. The bigger, the older they can go.
Yeah, but Fedor really did show that when you're young, you can be really good, and then when you're 42,
you can knock out Rampage Jackson.
It's true, but you can also get knocked out by Matt Mitrione. Like that, the pendulum swings pretty far both ways.
It was a double knockdown, and Mitrione got up quicker.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Fedor Emelianenko, the greatest fighter of all time, arguably, has a knockout loss to Matt Mitrione on his record. Age eventually plays a factor.
Yikes. John Quinn is 34. Good to know. Good to know. Go Dogs as we get ready for our co-main event of the evening that is not for a title like it originally was, but we have Tyron Woodley taking on Vicente Luque for the who gets to fight one really tough fighter next.
Oh, yeah, the winner of this is not getting an easy fight, but really no one in the top 15 is an easy fight. Probably the next winner gets Wonder Boy for the third and or second time. No one really knows.
Drop your picks over in the comments section. I'm seeing a lot of Luque, but we'll see what people are thinking. Maybe somebody has Woodley over there, and if he wins, you're going to look pretty good. All right, we have Jason Herzog. Rarely makes any mistakes. The fleet of foot referee, if there ever was one. I don't know that ring card girl, because honestly, I don't know a lot of them.
I don't know my name, Craig. I just oh, she did the last show.
Mitrione, Starch, Lewis. Yeah.
He did. That's what I mean. Matt Mitrione. Is he the GOAT?
Tyron Woodley going for it.
Overhands and wrestling. That's what we like to see. And this was the Tyron Woodley that you need if you want him to win this fight. He has to go for the takedown early and often because on the feet, he will be quite outmatched, I would say, especially with the volume. But for Woodley, this is what he's going to do. I don't like how hard Woodley's trying so far. That's the one thing. He will start to gas out if that's going to be his game plan. But again, Woodley, I would expect, has to be dedicated to the takedown.
Tyron Woodley went hot and heavy for that upper body throw. Wasn't really anticipating that, but I mean, he is training with noted boxer Ben Askren for this one, so interesting to see that. You got the shoulder strikes and head position. Luque really starting to push him up against the cage. And again, you laugh, we make jokes, but for Vicente Luque, I mean, yeah, he trained at Serrato MMA for this one. He was in Brazil. I know he has his buddy in his corner in Gilbert Burns. And one thing I have to say, it's always weird when the camera guys are hanging over and the heads are so close. To me, it's a weird look.
Do you think he whispers things to them? Hey, you're doing great. It'd be a fun wrinkle to add, I guess. For Luque, here's the great thing. It's a huge confidence booster that you defended the first takedown as immediately as you did. A, you moved out of the way of his overhand right. Great news. And B, Tyron really expended a lot of energy going for that takedown. And I'll be honest, when he originally went for it, I expected him to secure the takedown. But the fact that Luque was able to get this into more of a clinch position is great news.
Really trying to work a trip here with the upper body.
Good job
and
for Luque.
Luque getting out into distance. Overhand right from Tyron Woodley. Who's this guy?
Not the fighter we're used to.
Where's he been?
But again, for Woodley, he just keeps on going overhand right, overhand right. I don't like how much energy he's expending. And if he lands them, yeah, that's great. But for Woodley, something's going to have to pay off eventually.
Woodley going for another takedown at open space. And we got about 2 minutes remaining in our first round, where he's been going for broke, and you like to see it out of Woodley. Unfortunate under the circumstances on the losing streak, though.
Very true. Again, Tyron Woodley on a 4-fight losing streak. He's not Cowboy Cerrone. I don't think he likes, or him and Dana get along that well. So you do worry about his long-term, I guess, goals with the company. But again, good job for Luque. He was able to defend that takedown. Just a lot of clinch work going on so far. Luque, I'd say, is getting the slight better of it.
He's had good body shots, but we did see some nice knees from Woodley before the position that he's in right now.
No, good point for sure. Again, nothing overly impactful has landed for either guy, but just so far good clinch control from Vicente Luque. Where is a position I thought he'd struggle in.
I was going to say, for Luque, it's not like he's going to be able to get the tie clinch out of this whatsoever, because if he did try to go above the head, Woodley's going to change levels and drop for a double.
But he's doing a good job getting double underhooks, and he is a lot of the time winning the position for the arm as Woodley grabs a really quick underhook. But again, great job for Luque so far. Oh, big right hand by Woodley. That hurt Luque.
Woodley did a great job of throwing that right hand. We're at open distance. About 2 minutes remaining. Woodley just throwing everything into these punches. He landed another nice right hand.
Oh, big right hand by Luque. Luque landed a bomb of a right hand.
Ooh, nice knee to the body from Luque.
Oh, big left hook.
Really big left hand.
Woodley's hurt. He's out on his feet.
These guys are throwing.
Oh, he's hurt. Woodley is badly hurt up against the cage.
Luque really started to land nice knee to the head.
Great knee.
That's got to be it. You got to end the fight,
Jason.
Jason.
On his feet. Craig, stop. He's out against the cage, but he is still throwing back. Great right hand by Luque. Luque's keeping everything on the inside, and Woodley's having a really hard time with it. The speed of Luque's giving him problems. Big flying knee from Luque.
Woodley's trying to land everything with these bombs. About a minute 30 remaining.
This is the best
Luque
position
going for the choke.
Yeah, if he gets the Darce choke, it's over. This is one of Vicente Luque's best positions. But again,
cranking it in.
No, this is not a good spot for Luque, oddly enough. Luque did a great job on the feet. I'm kind of surprised he didn't just go for the knockout because I assume he had it. But the Darce choke's one of his best positions. Tyron Woodley might be...
Oh,
no. Oh, he's got him deep in there.
That's going to be it for this fight right here.
Oh, he
taps Vicente Luque by submission.
Tyron Woodley with a Darce choke.
Wow.
He knocked him out and choked him out. Listen, I like Vicente Luque. I'm a fan, some might say. But I did not think he'd be able to tap out the black belt in Tyron Woodley. Because one thing that you had kind of mentioned... He's underrated on the ground. Like, Tyron Woodley's a super good grappler. So
Tyron Woodley had never lost a fight by submission coming into this one. Wow.
Again, this is his best position, was that Darce choke. That is what Luque goes for. When he hurts guys, he can get them with the Darce. I don't want to say Vicente Luque might be champ one day, but he is starting to get on that path where I'm like, damn, Vicente's really good at everything.
Oh my gosh, Vicente Luque, huge win. And for Tyron Woodley, so unfortunate. I mean, he finally went for broke in that fight. He landed nice shots.
Luque
he went for the wrestling.
On the back of the head, which did seem to hurt him, but immediately recovered. And the speed of Luque, the technique of Luque is insane. Great job by Luque. Wow.
I mean, an amazing win for Tyron Woodley there. And Sabo Gaming, I can't tell if you're joking or not, but yeah, it's just a disappointing 4-fight losing streak for the former champion after this one.
You don't want to have your back up against the cage when Vicente Luque is throwing punches at you, because that's what you see. Like, he's got punches that are really fast. He's super tactical, too, and I think that's something that doesn't get mentioned. A lot of time when you think about, like, oh, Vicente Luque, you think about those crazy firefights that he gets in, and of course, that's what we did just witness, but he's really tactical, too. And when you are on the feet, we saw him catch him with that really nice check hook because Woodley was getting a little wild. So great job by Luque because, A, He ate Tyron Woodley's best shot that Tyron Woodley hasn't really thrown in a long time. So that's 14 rounds of readiness from that right hand. Luque ate your best shot, recovered, wobbled you on the feet, hurt you on the feet, and then choked you out. That's as good of a performance as you can get from Luque.
That's his best win of his career. I mean, for Vicente Luque now, moving forward, wow. I mean, you have to think about it in terms of this division. A stacked upper lineup, but Luque right now at 10, Woodley at 7. Maybe a date with Chiesa. Maybe he calls a shot and goes for Wonder Boy.
I think the Chiesa fight's a really good one, honestly, because Chiesa is just coming off. Oh, as he's showing his right hand. Yeah, he figured out, he basically leaned off to the right side of Woodley's shot and threw his own at the same time. Again, it shows the striking IQ of Vicente Luque. Like, these are smart people in this cage. And Vicente Luque, the way that he was able to adjust, he got hit by the right hand, then he goes, okay, if I get hit by it because my head was here, if I move it off more to the right, I'll be able to clip him. Just really nice work from Luque is really my only point. And the fact that he was able to end it with submission, something, you say you really like lead left hooks to the body. Do you know what I really like in fighters? When they hurt people on the feet and then submit them on the ground. It just shows really high fight IQ. And the fact that, what? I like it when guys, if you can hurt someone on the feet and submit them on the mat, it just shows how well-rounded you are. Great job by Vicente.
Yeah, I mean, Tyron Woodley looking dejected, and it makes sense. I mean, you talk about a 4-fight losing streak like that. He's been finished in his last 2. Alex Jeffrey's having a good time. I mean, hey, it's been a great time on the show. And, yeah, you got to get animated in a case like that. But, wow, what a win.
So, you had your little parlay that went. I did have Vicente Luque inside.
But you don't tell anybody about it, so.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't like, hey, I want to feel dumb if this is wrong. Just on a personal note, that's something to feel nice about.
Yeah, well, huge win for Vicente Luque in the co-main event. Big one. They're showing most finishes in the division. Matt Brown with 13. Matt Hughes with 12. Luque with 12 as well. And it's been a minute since Matt Hughes was in a fight that wasn't against a piece of machinery. And for Matt Brown, he's got a big fight coming up. Yikes, Diego Lima.
It's a winnable fight for Matt Brown. That's the good news. Like, Diego Lima will have a fun fight. I think that, fair enough to say, bit of a spoiler alert, that'll probably be on the Fight of the Night screen. Matt Brown likes to have a fun fight. Diego Lima likes to have a fun fight. As we see the picture-perfect striking of Vicente Luque in these replays, just a great performance by Luque. You see the power, the speed, the technique. Like, he really is a dangerous fighter for anyone in this top 15.
Yeah, I mean, Vicente Luque kind of going a little bit loopy and wild with the shots, but an amazing finish and an amazing win for him. And again, for me, you get a guy rocked as he had Woodley. I was surprised that he didn't just let him back up to his feet. He was on Beach Street, as you say, to be correct. But an amazing finish for him there and a great one. And, I mean, from 50K Dan Ige with the comment, I expect that's a 50K finish if there ever was one.
If you can get 2 finishes in a fight, that's basically what Vicente Luque did. Like, he had Woodley out on his feet and then choked him out on the ground. That's what I like with Luque, too. I love Darce chokes. That's why I like Tony Ferguson so much. Vicente's the new king of the Darce, I think. He goes for them all the time. That's how he got Nico Price the first time. He's got a few other ones earlier on in his career. It's just, isn't it weird how some guys, they might be let's say a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. I understand Luque's a black belt, but like OSP, I'm pretty sure he's either a blue or a purple belt, but the Von Prue choke to him is a black belt level choke. You know what I mean? Like, that position to him, he might as well be a black belt. With Luque, he is a really good grappler. He's got great submissions, but he's just got such a feel for that Darce choke that just not a lot of other fighters do out there. It's just a nice wrinkle that he has in his game.
As we get some more words from the man himself, Vicente Luque. But Matt, we're always brought to you by Manscaped. And hey, you! Got bush? You definitely do if you haven't tried the best products from our sponsor today, Manscaped. After using these life-changing products, you're going to want to join a Ballsack Beauty Contest. I'm looking out for you because I also have an exclusive 20% off discount. Use the code FNP at manscaped.com. And of course, Matt, this is the question mark kick screen. Where are all my great Manscaped products? You've got them somewhere over there. But listen, I'm a shower time ball shaver. Everybody's heard me talk about it. Matt just turned on my razor in the bag. Scarecrow with 50 bucks in the super chat. Really enjoying it from Seattle. I'd like to as well. But make sure you check them out. Lawnmower 3.0, The Shed, all kinds of great stuff over there. Manscaped.com. Use promo code FNP to save 20% off your order and free shipping. So we'll flip it on back over, Matt, to our second screen for the Fight Companion. Just have to really kind of absorb everything that just happened in our last fight, and at the same time get excited for this one. As for some reason on the screen, I've got a few different things going on, but Stipe and Ngannou, I mean, JD's got Ngannou. A lot of people have Stipe. The vast majority have Stipe based on the body of work that he's had, just not over his career, but in the first fight that we've had.
He's the underdogs. The vast majority don't have Stipe.
odds makers.
No, I understand.
Opened it for Stipe. The fans at Fight Night Picks on Instagram. Let's talk about them, Matt, because it's always fun to go that way. Let's have a look and see what the fans were thinking.
I am curious.
Go ahead. Boom goes the dynamite. 58% Miocic. 42% Ngannou. It's 359 for Miocic to 261 for Ngannou.
One of the wilder stats, and I would love to get your thought on this. There was a point where Francis was a minus 220 favorite over Stipe in this fight that we're getting tonight. Stipe dominated him in the first fight. You were there. That fight was not particularly close. Yes, Francis landed a few good power shots, but let's be honest. If you broke that down into minutes, Stipe probably won 24 of those 25 minutes. It's wild to me that at one point, Francis was a 2-1 favorite and remains the favorite right now. And yes, we both have Francis, but it still is kind of wild to me that this many people are confident he'll be able to win a rematch in a fight where he got dominated the first time around.
I mean, Matt, go back to UFC 220. I was there with some pals. Joe Burrow, for some reason's there.
I think he's
Is he the future of the Bengals? Maybe.
Is
probably.
he good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Won a national title with Go Joe. Go Joe. And
Oh, he's the guy who took the money,
Louisiana.
right, from Odell Beckham?
yeah, kind of.
Okay, he's cool then.
Smoking cigars in the dressing room. But again, if we focus on UFC 220 for a minute, going back to that, I stood next to Habib. His head is as massive as it looks, and it's more massive tonight. He's been pounding the Shane McDonnell. But you look at it, I mean, stood with him. DJ, very small fella. Those pictures are not online. One with Forrest Griffin where he's like, haha, yeah, I'll take a picture with you. Nobody's been taking a picture with me. And then, I mean, at the end of the night, you go back and you look at the way that the co-main and main event went. And I mean, listen, you got a guy behind you, Anthony Smith, and further up the wall, if it gets there, yeah, you can kind of see the chin of Volkan Oezdemir. But Volkan Oezdemir in the co-main event of that one. And I mean, it was a tough fight for old Volkan. Where, yeah, Daniel Cormier just absolutely dominating from pillar to post. But in the main event, we had Miocic and Ngannou won. And I've been to big sporting events in the past, but that was one of those ones where it's a packed house in Boston at TD Garden. And I know there's a few people in the chat that were there as well. Like, you felt tension before like that. But never like that. Like, I've never been so nervous in my life for a fight. And the whole time, it was pins and needles. I mean, you could hear everything. And yeah, you do that on TV right now where it's at the Apex, but in such a crowded arena, it was just insane. And for Stipe, ate some of those shots early and then just able to withstand it, implement his wrestling, implement his game plan, and run away with the win. So now we have the rematch where you hope, you think, you assume that Ngannou's made some moves. But has he really? We're going to find out.
I mean, yeah, Brendan Schaub couldn't set this fight up better than that. And it's really the case of the unknown with Francis Ngannou. Like, we can sit here and say his takedown defense has gotten better, because we hope so if he does have a competent team behind him, and his cardio has gotten better. Again, if you're with a team, whether it's your new team or your old team, if you have a decent team around you, let's say you go to AKA or ATT. If Mike Brown's your coach and you're in a rematch, you're going to show up better the second fight than you were for the first fight. He's a very cerebral guy. He can break everything down. I'm not worried if you go to a gym like that. With Francis, I hope he did the right things, but that's the thing. Francis Ngannou doesn't have just that one guy. You know what I mean? I would really like to see Francis with the one guy. Like, if Mike Brown was his head coach, but he had other coaches that kind of helped him out. I would really like to see Francis Ngannou with more of that one-on-one coaching. And I know it's hard because I bring up Mike Brown and Poirier, of course, because I just know more about them than most other fighters, but with them, I know it's hard to kind of get that one-on-one in a big gym, but of course, if you're a name like Francis, anyone would be happy to train you. Could you imagine a Jason Perillo trained Francis Ngannou? It's something I've been thinking about. I think it'd be a lot of fun. What if you had a guy who's known for teaching people a more volume-heavy and really just technically sound version of striking, along with Francis' God-given power? Like, I think there's versions of Francis Ngannou out there that are much better than the version we already have, and the version we have is insane.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you, and we're getting some of the highlight pack from their first meeting where it's just takedown after takedown and so on and so forth in such a contentious fight between two guys that really have made a great career of being at the top of the heap. For Stipe, a guy that came in, he's main evented, he lost the main event against Stefan Struve. He had to build his way back up. I mean, some insane stuff there. And to see where he's come to win the belt against Verdum in kind of hostile foreign territory like he did. I mean, just some insane moves that Stipe's been able to make in his career. And I mean, if you go back to that first fight, Stipe Miocic went 200 to 244 in total strikes for 73%, even of his significant strikes, 70 and 96, 6 of 14 for his takedown attempts, 15 minutes and 5 seconds of cage time. It's insane. Apparently, Vicente Luque called out Diaz.
I
don't
bad
give
news.
a good gosh darn about a Diaz call out.
Here's the thing. That fight's never going to get made because not enough people know who Vicente Luque is. And unless I become the matchmaker tomorrow...
When Masvidal loses to Usman, Masvidal's going to get Diaz.
Yeah, he very well could. And he probably should. But here's the thing. Luque beats the shit out of Nate Diaz. And I feel pretty... Nate Diaz isn't that fighter anymore. When we bring up how Tyron Woodley, his highlights are all kind of pre-UFC 200... Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor before Tyron Woodley was even welterweight champion. That's how long ago that fight was. And the only fight he's won since then is Anthony Pettis at 170, which isn't even his best weight class. So I think we just have to sort of gauge our expectations for how good Nate Diaz is at this stage in his career. Can he have fun fights? Yes, he can. But I don't think he's going to fight any contenders anytime soon.
Sabo v Gaming, I gotta really get on you about that comment. Ngannou hasn't had a lot of experience in failure. The first Stipe loss crushed him. Since then, there hasn't been a lot of challenge. He went out and fought Derek Lewis, and then after that fight, invested in his mental health and his conditioning and his training, and put his career back where it was before. So it's the Lewis fight. It's the Miocic fight starts it, the Lewis fight rock bottom, and then it's been up since then.
Well, because people are saying the same thing right now. Like, they're saying the same thing now about Stipe as they were, about Francis as they were about Poirier. It's always in his head. Like, he's got the psychological advantage. Maybe if you're a really honest fighter, you can say, I wasn't the better guy that night, but I can be the better guy tonight. And I do think that's the mindset that you have to have. Like, if you miss the first... Kobe Bryant has a great quote that is, I'd rather be 1 for 40 than 0 for 11. Because if you're 0 for 11, it means you gave up at some point. And it's the truth. If you're Francis, you have that 1 for 40 Hail Mary, where if you do hit that one shot, you're going to put Stipe out, whether it's the first round or the 5th round. So for Francis, I know this sounds cliche and it sounds very Robin Blackie. Just don't give up and you will have an opportunity to win this fight. Every fight starts on the feet. And with Francis, he has that X factor more than anybody. I know we talk about, Conor, every fight starts on his feet. He might be able to catch you. Francis Ngannou has the most power out of any fighter probably in UFC history. And I think that's very easy to say.
Like a Ford Escort. Like a sledgehammer.
Like a Ford Escort going 50 some miles an hour. I forget the exact number, but you almost have to be perfect when you fight Francis Ngannou. That's what Stipe is tasked with tonight. But here's the good news. Stipe Miocic is the greatest heavyweight of all time, so if anybody out there can beat Francis, it's going to be Stipe. That's what makes this fight so fun.
Dewey Cooper always hates sleeves. He's got that arm up there. He talks very deep. He really accentuates his fighter strikes in the countdowns and the embeddeds. If we've ever learned anything... It's insane.
But here's the thing. Anthony, and I hate to single you out, but you're using what I call the Cain Velasquez theory, where the people who say Cain Velasquez is the greatest of all time must think that Junior Dos Santos and Bigfoot Silva are like 5 and 6 on the list. Because when you really look at prime Cain, those are the only 2 guys he beat. He beat both of them twice and got hurt a bunch of times. And with Stipe, he got better. He only fought DC since he fought Francis. I don't know how he looks against other types of fighters. I just know that a guy much smaller than him knocked him out, and then he was able to make the adjustments to look really good in the second and third fight. And DC himself said Stipe got better from the first fight to the third fight. But it's not like he got better against different fighters. He just got better fighting that same guy. Like, DC wasn't doing different things between all of his fights. So that's the only pushback I'll give you. I do think Stipe's improved, but again, was it he just got a better game plan to fight Daniel Cormier, or did the overall game of Stipe really improve?
Now, Matt, I mean, we picked Ngannou. We're going to go with a little bit of bias there. But again, Stipe Miocic, you want to talk about it, the greatest of all time, so on and so forth. Kevin saying that, only Rogan says that Kane's the GOAT. But that was when he did every pay-per-view and a lot of the fight nights, too. So you got to kind of take the good with the bad and with a pinch of salt as well. And I got to go back up because, Matt, that super chat continues to look good. We got the one from Brandon that we missed on saying, edge of my seat for the next fight. Let's get into it. And the one back there from Scarecrow, I mean, Champ Scrap. Who are you going with, Scarecrow? If you can let us know in the comments section, as well as everybody over there. But for Stipe...
Hopefully Seattle can get some professional sports teams, too.
Stipe... Well, I mean, the Crack.
Some more. They need the
Sonics. Maybe a baseball team. Well, they already have one in the Mariners, so let's just
they need the
edit
Sonics
that
back.
one out. But for Stipe Miocic, again, it's the complete package, which is something you don't often see in heavyweight MMA.
Oh, not at all.
And the popcorn is also just like a prop. You're not supposed to actually eat it.
I'm not eating anything.
Okay.
I think Stipe, Stipe doesn't fight like a heavyweight. He fights like a middleweight who just so happens to be the size of a heavyweight. He's a very big fighter. He's got great cardio. And it's funny. We really do have to mention the fact that Stipe can go a hard 3 rounds. Like, he can go a hard 5 rounds, much less 3 rounds. And in heavyweight, It's a big accomplishment if you can keep up a 15-minute pace. And the fact that Stipe is so good throughout 25 minutes, he can keep the same output throughout 25 minutes, is really... It's just kind of unique to Stipe, and I understand, but Kane was really good. Kane fought a guy who couldn't wrestle and was really good at boxing and fine with putting his back up against the cage. It's an easy stylistic matchup for him. With Stipe, he's going to have to make this an MMA fight, though. If he just goes out there and tries to box with Francis, yeah, he's going to land some shots, and I don't doubt that Stipe can knock out Francis, but it would take his chances of winning, let's say, of like 55-45 down to like 20.
Sean V, position over submission. And that's the Stipe Miocic way.
But not really. Like, go back to the first fight. He's on his knees, just postured up, throwing punches. There's nothing holding Francis on the ground. He's just laying on the back, kind of cool with it. If Francis has any type of really just jiu-jitsu or wrestling training, hopefully his get-ups are a little bit better, because we saw nothing by way of resistance once his back was on the mat. So hopefully we can see some improvements from Francis.
For both of these guys, wonderful striking coaches. You have Alex Cooper that always has the USA shooting sleeve. For Francis, my favorite striking coach, Dewey Cooper, because he just doesn't like that sleeve. For Craig Allen, the Fight Night Picks baseball jersey, you missed out on the sale, Matt, because the sale ended yesterday, but FMP 25 would have gotten you 25% off your order. And there were a number of people that took advantage of that, but there's still great stuff over at the store.
Stipe, the worst case of bedhead I've ever seen walking into the cage. That's the first thing I've got to mention.
I mean, Machine Gun Kelly doesn't have great hair, but he's got him beat there. Stipe, it's been salon quality Stipe, though, and if we've learned anything from Dustin Poirier, that's awful.
Like, that is record. That is the worst hair I've ever seen walking into the cage. And I saw Sean O'Malley like 20 minutes ago. That was bad. For Stipe, here's the thing. I just don't know at what point do heavyweights really age. And I guess that's a question for anyone out there. Like, for Stipe, he is going to get to a certain point to where age will start to affect him negatively, where he will start to slow down. His cardio won't be as good. He won't be able to recover as fast. I just don't know when that's going to happen. Like, Stipe could fight until he's 41. A lot of boxers can fight into their early 40s, especially at heavyweight. And I won't just limit this to boxers. Of course, it happens in MMA too. And like what you had said with Tyron Woodley, power is the last thing to go. But for Stipe, he's not just a power-oriented athlete. He does need the speed. He does need the athleticism, the reaction time. So at a certain point, it will start to calm down. But this is such an interesting fight.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, we're going to learn everything we need to know in the first round. If Stipe's going to run away with it, he runs away with it. If Francis knocks him out, he knocks him out. So we'll see exactly what happens. I just want to say a thank you to everybody out there tuning in for our fights. Again, the popcorn is a prop, but Matt's really kind of gotten into the pop and popcorn thing, so now it's on me to talk for a bit. But we've got the 38-year-old Miocic. Again, consider him where he is, but 234 pounds. He came into the first fight at 233, and Ngannou coming in at 263. First fight was 261 and a half, if I'm not mistaken.
Stipe came in at 243.
233 in his last fight. For Ngannou, 261.5 in his last fight. So those are the particulars in terms of the weight. A little bit of the intangibles. I mean, for Francis Ngannou said in one of the embeddeds that he wants to kick balls around with people, play a little bit of soccer on top of a mountain.
If I saw Stipe with that hair playing with his mouth guard in his mouth, I think that was a crazy person, not one of the best players of our generation, but it's what he is.
Sean V, I appreciate you. You say funny things in the chat, and you say funny things in the comment section, but you're a real one, and we're getting set for our main event of the evening. Matt, I love heavyweight fights, and this is the highest of high level.
Oh, yeah, like, this is the definition of a heavyweight fight. It's one guy wins in the first flurry, we'll say, or the other guy just kind of completely dominates him. But, again, Stipe is weird, because he's good at wrestling, but I don't think his jiu-jitsu is that great. And it's weird because there are some examples out there of him with somewhat decent grappling. Again, I bring up the Mark Hunt fight because he does a great job of really controlling Mark Hunt on the mat. But then you look at some of his other fights, he can get the takedown, but most guys do pop right back up to their feet. It's like he's constantly taking down Yoel Romero. Like, Yoel will give up the takedown, but no one can hold him down, so he just gets back up. It's kind of like with Stipe with pretty much everyone. Ngannou is the only guy he really has been able to hold down other than Mark Hunt for long extended periods of time. So it'll be interesting to see if he immediately goes to wrestling because he had so much success with it in their first fight, or if he will try to keep it on the feet for a little bit and sort of try to parry and counter.
And for Francis Ngannou, there's a lot of conversation around maybe the winner gets Brock, so on and so forth. Ramon's saying let Matt eat some popcorn, but if he eats his popcorn, then he doesn't talk properly, and it just makes for a poor show. It's just a little bit of, you don't see John Anik eating popcorn. You see him talking about
John Anik.
You see him talking about taking amateur fights. I'd love to see Brock Lesnar come in against the winner, maybe F5's Francis Ngannou from back in the day in a steel cage. And what was the elimination cage?
Elimination Chamber.
Oh, Elimination Chamber. Those are always fun. But yeah, you're getting the fighter out of Cameroon here in Francis Ngannou that switched around his camps. We saw him in years ago out of MMA Factory with Fernand Lopez. Man, I don't know if I've ever seen a fallout recently in MMA like I've seen one there. Yikes.
Julia Aviles says, hold my beer, Craig Allen, because she also had a bit of an unceremonious... I guess, I don't know. Exit, yeah, from her last gym. She will be training with James Krause, though, moving forward, so that might be a really good sign for the rest of her career.
Her wrestling with Gina Mazzani, former opponent.
You can't get any worse doing that. Again, this is such a fun fight, because you do have one of the greatest fighters of all time on one side of the cage, and arguably the most terrifying on the other. And those two things aren't always intertwined, but for Francis, the way he's finishing people, he doesn't TKO people like Jeremy Stevens once claimed Conor McGregor did. You TKO people. When I hit them, they don't effing move. When Francis Ngannou hits people, they don't effing move. Unless they're Curtis Blades the second time around, he was still kind of moving, but he was out, let's be honest. This fight, oh my goodness, we are ready. The brawl to settle them all, folks. Final predictions in the chat if you want to throw them out there, but yeah, this is it, Craig.
Both of us with Ngannou in this one. I know it's not the popular pick, and we'll see what happens, but overall, Matt riding the 8-1. I'm 7-2 so far. The question mark kick parlay hit. I'm a happy guy as we get set for the first round. If you're tuning in at home, you got to pause. We're going to hit the timer on the computer as we get the start of the round. You can sync up with us, but really appreciate everybody for tuning in. I mean, again, none of this is possible without you, the fans out there, as we get set for our first round between two very good fighters.
Stipe seems much more calm than I would be if I was in his position right now. I would be very scared, moving around quite frantically.
I'd probably be stiff. Very stiff.
Stipe just kind of moving around on the outside. Francis kind of flicking at the jab. He has control of the cage right now. Good leg kick by Francis. Now, it is interesting because we did see a lot of film of Francis practicing those leg kicks, but look at the second Junior Dos Santos fight. Stipe's front leg's kind of dead when he does knock out JDS, and he does sort of rush the finish because that leg's starting to get beat up. So maybe Francis did see something in training where he could take advantage of the lead leg of Stipe.
Francis so far really changing levels. He's got a nice wide base, almost anticipating the takedown here, starting to throw some feints with his lead hand, and now he's getting a little busy.
But he's being slightly more technical than we've seen in the past. He's not just letting his hands go. Great leg kicks so far. Now, do they look good? Not really, but they are landing, and you know if anything Francis throws at you lands, it's going to hurt.
All right, Matt, we're about a minute in. Francis going a little bit wonky as he gets his outside leg kicked there by Stipe.
That's true.
So just kind of looks like a firefighter that happens to be in a fight.
I was going to say, he does run into burning buildings, so like this probably isn't even the scariest thing he's done this year, which good on Stipe.
Oh!
Big
overhand
right by
lands.
Francis. The fact that Stipe ate that surprising.
Chicken Little has woken up.
That hair is rough, though. Please comb that back or do something in between rounds. But Francis, that's the thing. He's fast, too. Like, he can get from point A to point B very, very quick, but it's a good sign that Stipe was able to eat that shot early on.
All right, Matt, you got Ngannou looking to close the distance here.
Straight up nervous for this fight.
About a minute and 40 seconds into it, Miocic times the strike from Ngannou.
Great job by Stipe getting inside deep on that leg.
Ngannou pushing the head.
Great job on Francis.
Wow,
sprawling.
what a sprawl.
Goes to take the back. We're seeing something new from Francis, something that you really like to see.
Francis takes Stipe down!
Big ground and pound shots by Francis up against
Oh
the
my
cage.
goodness!
Oh, he's got Stipe in all sorts of trouble. Stipe's
wow!
Francis going for his own team. Here's the thing.
Yeah,
Francis
you don't like that.
Yeah, he can't just go scorched earth. He did have Stipe a little rocked up against the cage, but great job by Francis so far. Really good job.
Francis Ngannou took Stipe Miocic down, landed nice shots from the back, didn't land any illegal ones, and now you have to worry. The gas tank's been an issue before. That was a lot of energy expended. And I don't want to make it a narrative, but it has been something throughout his career.
It's not like Stipe's throwing a... Oh, head kick by Francis. Francis Ngannou throwing out a lot, but Francis just already looks like the more complete fighter. He did make improvements since the first time they fought, and I do think it's very obvious so far. Great job by Francis, but here's the thing. Stipe is still going to be there. Like, until you put him out, it's not like he's out of this fight by any means, but I like the footwork of Francis, too. He is switching stances a little bit, not something I thought we'd see whatsoever, but great first round by Francis.
Francis Ngannou very much taking this fight like I would if I was playing as Ngannou on UFC 4. I'd just be throwing out the kicks, a little bit of head kicks that you never see from him, but they exist in that game for a reason because we just saw one right here.
They do it for Francis, yeah, just a really good start to the round. You do have to worry about his cardio moving forward, and every second that ticks, the fight does sort of move in the favor of Stipe. But for Francis, you haven't expended a ton of energy so far. In a few moments, yes, but for the most part, he's been somewhat reserved. So just a great fight so far from both guys.
Good job of moving away from the kick for Ngannou. He's got about center cage here with 1:30 remaining. And yeah, just an interesting first round hammer of a right hand that doesn't find a home.
He almost
backs up his
threw it.
opponent.
It's wild. The thing for Francis, though, is when he throws the overhand, he does get pretty wild with it, whether it's intentional or not, to get the most power on it. But when he lets it go, he does leave himself open for the takedown. You can see Stipe actually closes the distance when he goes through that punch. You would think, oh, you want to get out of the way of it. No, if you crash the distance, it means that he won't get the extension to actually hit you with all the power. So it's being really smart by Stipe.
Very interesting here.
Woo!
We have a power combination, but really for Ngannou, didn't plan on that one. Wasn't able to land anything while Miocic just moved out of danger.
But again, for Francis, every time you defend a takedown or every time you can just make sure that this fight stays in the feet, you're doing something right. And so far, Stipe really hasn't been able to engage in any of the boxing so far because he is so worried about what's coming back his way.
Nice leg kick from Ngannou. And two, you have to think, I mean, it's got to be a little demoralizing when you can't get that early takedown. And that was a deep single. And then you get taken down by the striker.
You keep on saying he got taken down. He didn't. He kind of did, but he got right. But like that would not be considered a takedown. It was a good job by Francis just to make him work. But I wouldn't really say that that was a takedown by Francis.
Find out with the numbers at the end of the round. We're just like the judges. We can't see those numbers, but you get about 15 seconds remaining in this first round. And yeah, I mean, it's been a night where Nurmagomedov was a striker, where Menefield was a grappler. It's just been a strange night. Morales was a wrestler. So we've seen a very, very interesting first round out of these two guys. Nice leg kick in the finish from Ngannou. That's a 10-9 Ngannou in my book.
Oh, without a doubt. Ngannou really showed a great variety of strikes. He threw a head kick in there. He threw a lot of leg kicks. Like, good job from Francis. He landed the more effective strikes. And honest to God, I don't even know if Stipe landed anything in that round. Like, he had the close takedown, but Stipe, when I say you have to be dedicated to something, like, when you go for that takedown, don't just let him sprawl, and then that's it for the takedown. Like, chain wrestle, try something else. And when you throw punches, listen, I'm not recommending you stand in the pocket with Francis Ngannou, but you're going to have to figure something out. You can't just stand at the range. He's standing at the extended range of Francis's punches, and Francis has a bigger reach than Stipe, so for the most part, Stipe will just kind of be on the outside looking in.
1 of 2 on his takedown attempts by the UFC.
That's fine. No, you can consider it the number, but to Stipe, in his head, he doesn't care. He's not like, I just got taken down. In Stipe's head, he goes, I just got back up, and I'm not knocked out. That's all he cares about.
All right, an interesting first round. Nonetheless, Diego Casas has got it 0-8. I'm assuming you meant 10 of 8.
Big head kick by Francis. That landed, too, with the big toe.
This has been an insane night of fights already. An insane start to this one as we get set for our second round. Make sure you sync up with the timer. Stipe looking calm. He's been in a fight before.
Oh, yeah. Francis, he is breathing. Well, I would hope. If he wasn't, he'd be dead. But Francis, again, great first round by Francis. That's what you really needed to see if he wasn't going to knock him out. But for Francis, I do think the more reserved Francis is the better one. If you're keeping Stipe just not doing anything because you're awake, just stay awake. That's really the key to this fight.
Francis really trying to push a pace here. We're about 20 seconds into the round. Stipe gets hit by another leg kick there.
Just the leg kicks are really starting to pile up for Ngannou, and they're really nice. And of course, if he throws it, there's going to be a lot of power behind it. But great job by Francis.
Nice
so
lead
far.
hook from Ngannou as well. Oh, another one
left
cracks him. There's a home for that left hook.
He's getting wild with the right hand behind it, but if he can just shorten up on the right hand like we saw Vicente Luque do with it, then
Oh, he knocks him
big
down!
left hand by Francis. He's got him hurt.
He's going after the finish. Big uppercut from Ngannou. Stipe engages.
Stipe hurt him.
Oh, he dropped him! Ngannou's your champion!
No!
Francis Ngannou's the heavyweight champion!
Stipe cold!
Wow! What a finish, man! 9-1 on the night, 8-2 in the question mark kicks parlay hit. Fight night picks. Wow!
Wow!
Francis Ngannou! Holy smokes! Oh man, give him the stool!
Who knew Patient Francis? A scary man.
Let's get into it! Wow!
Good for Francis. He went from working in a sand mine as a kid to being homeless in France to being the champion of the world. If you can't get behind that, then you just don't like the sport, I'm assuming. But what a better story for Francis. Gets dominated in the first fight. Comes back. Beautiful little like shovel hook with the jab. That was beautiful by Francis. Great job switching the stance in combination. You see Max Holloway do that. But yeah, good job by Francis Ngannou. He was reserved. He defended the takedown. It wasn't just Francis went scorched earth and caught him. Like he outsmarted Stipe. What a shot. Oh, that was a bad one.
Listen, I mean, you had the referee running in there, but wow, what a win for Cameroon. Oh my goodness, Francis Ngannou. And for all the naysayers, really doing a good job at halting that. I mean, it's a shame too. I mean, listen, this is the greatest heavyweight that we've ever seen. A loss like that doesn't take anything away from the legacy that we've seen before, but for Francis Ngannou, man, that fight against John Jones is going to be pretty good, eh?
You heard it here first. Francis Ngannou is going to knock out John Jones. Wow. But again, maybe Usman and Ngannou's like a new mythical figure in MMA.
Those guys have to train together from here on out. And Dewey Cooper, that sleeve changes the game. I mean, Kevin Lee's going to come back and go scorched earth at lightweight now.
That was insane. Francis Ngannou, like, what more can you say, though? He's gotten better. He's shown the improvements. And, yeah, just a crazy story from Francis Ngannou. Wow. Good job, Francis.
An amazing win for Francis Ngannou. Holy smokes. I mean, listen. What a turnaround from that first fight over 3 years ago.
Thank goodness we are right. That is the main point behind all this. It was such a close fight, too, and that was the worrisome thing. After that first round, okay, that's Francis' best round. What's going to happen after that? But Stipe, he wasn't really able to get anything off, and it was neat, too. Right when Francis hurt Stipe, I thought Stipe landed a punch that hurt Francis right before Francis put him out, and that was the crazy thing. So, do you think we're going to get a trilogy moving forward?
I mean, a lot of people saying in the comments section, but Dana White already threw out the winner was going to get Jones, and I think you go with the money fight, set it up, you have fans in attendance, and we get Ngannou Jones, and it doesn't take anything away from Miocic. Again, I think maybe we'll see the rematch after that fight if we get a win from Ngannou, but what an amazing win from a very deserving guy here.
It really, again, like, what a crazy story. Only MMA gives you stuff like this. Again, born in Cameroon, worked in a sand mine, got muscles like that, I guess, because he was, but was homeless in France, walked into a boxing gym. Like, it's insane the journey that Francis Ngannou has come on to become world champion. And it, again, if anyone were to beat Stipe, it's nice that someone like Francis was able to do it. Because, like, you can tell how much he appreciates this. Just crazy. Like, these are the types of journeys that make MMA great. You go from being super green, you're just athletic, you only hit hard, and then you develop your skill set. You get better, and you get to the top of the mountain, you get knocked down, and then you work your way back up again. Great job by Francis.
Extreme Couture. I mean, forget about that Misha Serkinov loss the other week. This is it. This is it. I mean, what a win. You had the takedown, you had the punches, you had the kicks, the head kick, the leg kicks.
Exactly.
I mean,
good point.
Holy smokes, we had totally reinvented Ngannou. And again, to get to the top of the mountain in this division, you need to have things like that. I mean, again, we've seen Gon mix things in. We've seen even Tom Aspinall make his way up. Even Chris Dawkins. But for Ngannou, he's that polished product now, up at the top, really putting on impressive fights, and a huge win for Ngannou there.
Yeah, again, if it was going to happen to anyone, good thing it happened to him. Great shots, too. That was the thing. It's not like Francis just hit him with an overhand right, and that's it. Francis wins by knockout. Like, he hit him with a opposite stance power left hook, and then finished him afterwards. So just really nice variety of shots by Francis, like I said. It's not just that, oh, he's a scary puncher now. He's got the leg kicks. He's got even the body kicks, I'm assuming, the head kicks. He's not just a puncher anymore, to use that boxing term. He is now a fighter, and wow, great job by Francis. He showed us everything we wanted him to. He defended the takedown. He showed better cardio. He showed better striking. Like, again, I couldn't be more impressed by what I saw from Francis tonight.
Well, an amazing win there and a great night for the boys. Matt went 9-1. I went 8-2. The question mark kicks parlay hit. All the naysayers out there every week, bring it on. We're back and better than ever. Amazing night, and it's all thanks to all of the fans out there as well. So we really appreciate you out there. It should be a great weekend. A couple of weeks from now, we have UFC on ABC2. You have Darren Till taking on Marvin Vettori. I'm really looking forward to it. A week off, we have good things coming out. We've got 3 interviews that JHK's done so far banked. 2 of them from a promotion that we don't talk about a lot. However, on This Week in MMA, when it comes out, we'll be talking a lot about them. So I appreciate everybody for sure. And yeah, we'll be back in a week or so.
Yeah,
we'll have content the whole time, but we'll be back with predictions in a week or so. So really appreciate everybody. Matt, we'll part with this. As we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, recorded in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. It's time for Fight Night Picks with your host.